It says we're live. Hello, everybody. Look who this guy is, huh? Many of you recognize this guy. And if you don't recognize him because of the way he looks, as soon as you hear his voice, everybody will know him. If you recognize it, see how I go. And if you don't recognize him because of the way, got it. All right.
Actually, let me give it a mic test. Maybe we should probably split it a little bit. But check 1, 2. I probably have to go in that far.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, and then I'll just swivel it over here and talk. It doesn't look great for video, but it's not for, we're not doing this for video, right?
It's an audio podcast.
Yeah. So for now, I'll just put it right in between the two of us.
And we can just, lean in if we bump heads.
Yes.
Bump heads.
Yeah, that might be the easiest thing.
Yeah,
Just kind of take turns, and then, bam, hit each other in the head, and then call 911. We should probably give somebody your address so that they'll know where to send the ambulance or the ambulances. Oh, look at that. Add to stream. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Micah.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Nick. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Your audio sounds great.
Great. So does yours.
So does
yours.
Thank you very much.
In a world.
I gotta grab something to drink now.
Yes, please do. All right.
So how's life in Micahville?
Oh, it's great. Well, he didn't hear what you just said. He said, "How's life in Micahville?"
I'm doing great.
He said he's doing great.
Super, super.
How about you here?
Yeah, it's
Excellent.
it's great. Here, let me do some sound effects here.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
Can you hear that all right?
Yep, you bet.
Okay. Hi there. I'm on a trip, and I'm in Syracuse. I guess North Syracuse. No, I'm not. I'm in Portland, Maine. Let's see. Let me get another sound effect program going. How are you, sir?
Surviving. Thank you very much. Been a busy old week.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait to hear about it.
Very enjoyable there.
So I guess Steph's not going to be able to make it today, right?
I don't know. I haven't been in touch with her since she left.
She said if Mike is going to be here, I'm not coming.
Oh, yeah, that's what you're right. How did you know that? I thought that was all behind the
No,
scenes.
she told me.
Ah.
Yeah,
Well, I like the light
blame
better.
her, I must admit. Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to turn it down a little bit. It's just a bit.
That's what NODAMs are. They're just a bunch of garbage that nobody pays any attention to.
She said she's not hanging around with any creepy guys. She had enough of me when she was in Maine.
Yeah, I don't blame her. Although she hung out with a bunch of creepy guys in the UK this past week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all we have here.
Yeah, but she had Ginny to protect her. Jilly, rather.
Jilly. Oh, okay. Who's Jimmy?
I meant Jilly.
I thought maybe you were talking about Justice. Something.
That's right. Jimmy doesn't listen to the show.
Jimmy. Good old Jimmy. I gotta love Jimmy. And this is wonderful tessellation beer.
Cheers.
And what do
Just
you have in
ginger
there?
beer.
What is it?
Just a ginger beer.
A ginger beer. Nice.
I haven't eaten anything yet today.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You need to watch that alcohol consumption then, Micah. Let's see here. Let me see.
Excellent. Around a little bit.
We have. And then I went ahead and scribbled my script for the intro.
You scribbled the intro.
I scribbled it.
Man, good. So who are we going to have tonight? Not Steph? Yes, Steph? We don't know about Steph.
Well, when we talked about this last week, I think that, and Liz, you can correct us if we're wrong, which you don't really hesitate to do. And we do appreciate that. But I think that Steph said that her week this week was just, the whole week was just horrible.
I think it was going to be fairly crazy after the time she took over here.
But, she'll sometimes say that and then end up showing up anyway. So we'll see.
There you go.
But Dana said he was off all day. So, you can see that he's here with us.
Yeah, so far so good.
He was in the chat room.
Perhaps he just hasn't realized that the host link is up.
You know, he needs to actually look at these messages that we send him. Come on, Dana.
Waiting for you, Dana. Okay, now he's got a text message too.
Okay. Well, I sent him a text message. This thing
okay.
over here is
that's
the
right.
same
You're
thing as
connected
sending a
with
text
wireless,
message to him. Yeah. Thank you, Liz. He said not too long ago that he was standing by.
Okay.
Not sure what he's standing by.
While he's trying to work out what he's doing, I'm going to get a beer.
Okay.
What flavor are you getting?
Beer flavored beer, I think. That's probably my favorite.
Okay. Something not too fruity?
Fruity Tooty. Tutti Fruity.
You know what Nick says, the fruitier the better. Or
yeah, that'll do. Right, let me just find what's that bloody strange program. Not eyeglasses.
Oh, there's your crop block brother, Eric.
Settings.
The cool thing is, Micah, you don't have to actually type it. You can actually say something and he can hear you.
Oh, hello, my crop block brother.
So we're not only are we sharing a brain, but we're actually sharing a microphone as well. We just figured that was the easiest way to do this. So we're going to be leaning into it as we speak.
We're going to get very close.
Shall we sing a duet?
It was only somebody's birthday. It's the only song I know.
I don't know. I think we already covered all the birthdays.
Mm-hmm.
You can
We can always
go around if it don't look right.
coming down,
Don't wait until your side's baby
sliding on the ground.
You can always
Go around.
I know better when.
So Dana did respond. He goes, "Oh, okay." He responded to Main Man Micah's message, but not ours.
He knows where soup is made.
Apparently, yeah, that's right. We have not made him soup. You have.
Hello, terrific Tanya.
Woo! Yeah, woo! You made it. Tanya made it. Yay! What's wrong?
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeves.
Got to keep that one handy for Nick.
Yeah, I need a lot. Ow, ow, ow.
What?
There's something high pitched beeping.
You still hear it?
No, it was just going beep,
just a
beep, beep.
You mean this?
Yes, don't press it.
I didn't even. Yes, I didn't even.
Yes, that's the one. Ow,
He did it.
ow. Mean man, Micah. That was.
Let's see.
We should just call that the
Get
mat
rid of that.
The what button?
The mat button.
The mat button?
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
It's,
That got rid of it.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, good. Now I'm sorted. I'll go and get some beer.
Okay. Now we can talk about him. And he'll never know, except this is being recorded on YouTube. Oh, looks like Dana's here.
Hooray!
There's Dana.
I've
Finally.
been waiting. You just didn't see me. I can't hear you.
Well, it's your problem.
You're funny.
You can hear me
Wow.
now, though, right?
You're like so soft. It's not even funny. I can barely hear you.
Well, everybody else says the volume's fine.
I'll write
Can't
back.
hear us at all. Oh, now he's gone. Well, it was nice seeing you, Dana.
Speak for yourself.
That's why you encouraged him to become a captain, so you wouldn't have to fly with him anymore.
Exactly. Shh. Don't tell everybody my secret.
Now, the question I have for you two is, where should I stick the bishop's finger?
Wow. That's a loaded question right there.
It certainly is.
I'm going to have to let you decide that. Device is not connected, it says. Add to stream. Hello?
Hi.
Any better?
No, I can't get it to come through my. Hello, check one, two.
Okay. On that screen that you're looking at us on, the StreamYard screen, settings. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Go to settings on the StreamYard screen.
Yeah.
Do you have the proper
Hold on.
speaker chosen?
Yeah, I've got my speaker set to Scarlett USB.
Okay. Do you
And
have
I just hit the test, and it came through real loud.
Okay.
I'll
Let's,
just have to turn my monitor all the way up. Say something now.
Okay. Well,
No.
Nick, say something, Nick, so he can see if it's just.
Hello, hello. Hello, Dana. Hello. Can you hear me,
Hey
Dana?
there. No, you're all scratched and muffly. It might be me. I have no idea what's going on here. Huh. Interesting. If you're having issues, try restarting your browser. I already tried to do that.
I'm thinking it has something to do with your. So you're plugged into the Scarlett?
Yep. Focusrite.
I mean, yeah, it's a Scarlett, Focusrite Scarlett.
Yep.
Um,
Now, when I go to external speakers, I can hear you just fine.
yeah. I can hear myself too.
Let me try something else here. Try one more thing.
Your headphones don't have an individual volume control, do they?
I see. Got it.
I see, said the blind man.
Well, I had
What was it?
I had my periphery is all plugged into my computer, and I forgot to unplug them, and it drained my battery completely down. So I plugged my power back into my computer directly, because through the external thing that I have here that can put everything on, it wouldn't charge. So thus I unplugged my Bose from my computer, and now I plugged the Bose back in the computer. Now you're loud and clear. It's weird.
Okay. Can you hear yourself through
Yeah.
there too? Okay.
That was weird.
All right. Well, I'm glad you sorted it out.
Yeah, it's been sorted.
Excellent. Okay. Well, if Steph is able to join us, she'll join us whenever she can, but we're not expecting her today. All right. So are we ready to go?
Hi, Micah.
Hi, Dana. Nice to see you.
Likewise. Guess what?
What's that?
We're going to get personal next month.
Oh, yeah?
Month's a bride, please.
Let's
All right.
get personal.
With or without locks?
Oh,
With
the
or
Lux,
without locks?
the Lux on the side. Can't have
Okay.
it.
I like to make it lox and eggs and onions matzo bride.
You know what I'm thinking? I just had this revelation last night or yesterday afternoon when I was having lunch with one of our APG community members, Stefan Ballmer in Syracuse. And I was talking about the fact that somebody had I know what it was. The night before, when Tom Catalino was with Stefan and I in Syracuse, the first night I was in Syracuse, he was talking about the fact that he started listening to the podcast, and he goes, "What is this? Just a bunch of people chatting about stuff." He goes, "I don't want to listen to that." And I'm thinking, I hadn't thought about the fact that somebody brand new listening, and we start off with all our personal chit chat stuff. Maybe people think that's all we do for the whole show. So what do you think about starting with the news and then take a break, do the chat stuff, getting caught up stuff in the middle, and then doing the feedback at the end?
Sounds good. Where are you going to do introductions?
Yeah, we do introductions,
Okay.
and then after that, we go right on into the news.
And I will say that the Airplane Geeks do What's Up with the Geeks as the last part of the show.
You're so soft spoken, man, Micah.
Yeah.
Smoking hot.
I'm not very smoking. I was going to say is that the Airplane Geeks do What's Up with the Geeks as the almost the last part of the show.
Well, I don't want to
before
do that,
mail, but
because that would be copying them. I'm not going to do that. That's dumb. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding,
you
Max.
don't want to follow those idiots.
No. What do they know about aviation podcasting?
Not a
How
thing.
long have they been doing this?
What's the
Longer than I.
500.
Well, let's just give it.
I almost think, Jeff, that, and this is just me speaking out of my rear end sometimes, I guess. But anyways, I kind of think that we've kind of gotten away from the premise of the show when we start talking about at the beginning of the show. We go on at length about some things that really not aviation related.
Well, we'll have this discussion off air and not online, but I disagree very strongly.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not the kind of thing we should. I'm just
Okay.
talking
No,
about
it's just
format right now,
Yeah.
not.
But from my 2
Philosophies.
cents, and I don't want to go into it much further, I think sometimes the personal stuff in terms of talking about your flying and where you've been and what's happened is more aviation related than some of the other things, because you're talking about the personal life of what a captain is doing and what's going on. And I think people want to hear that.
Right, and it's not a radio show; it's a podcast, and that's what a podcast to me is all about.
I'm just doing my best, Jeff. You know me. I love playing devil's advocate.
Really, you're doing your best, Dana?
No,
Are you sure?
I'm not. Really not.
Okay,
I was just playing devil's advocate, man.
okay, but
Putting food for thought. That's all.
If you always play devil's advocate, then you never agree with us ever. Is that right?
No, I agree with you all the time. But I'm good at playing devil's advocate. I do get some thought process going. So
and that's important to have.
It's a Talmudic way of reasoning, is that even if you agree with something, you have to disagree so that you can get the right answer.
Well, yes. I mean, I was raised by a single white Jewish female.
Okay, I'm thinking we should get this thing going.
Let's get this road on
Not
the
sure
show.
what hole this thing's going down. Okay, here we go. Liz said she was ready about 10 minutes ago. Thank you. That was a private communication to me, but main man Micah gets to read it as well. Just wanted to warn you. Okay, here we go. Liz, we're starting at 39, I guess, ish.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 392.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio Main Man Micah in Portlandia, Maine. Today's show was recorded on the 18th of September, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Get you right and it's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, spilled coffee diverts a flight to Ireland. A Nairobi lawmaker proposes a resolution to end in-flight flatulence. More news, your feedback, and this week's Plain Tale. I did not write that down. What's the name of this week's Plain Tale?
It's in the intro.
No, it's not in the intro.
Called, well,
Oh,
yes,
it is there. Okay, I didn't. So what I did, I actually made some notes when
All right. Okay.
earlier today, and I at the time I was doing these notes, I didn't know what the Plain Tale was because it didn't get in there until just recently, right?
It's called Well Defined.
Well defined. Okay.
And we didn't do a
Oh, we didn't start our
And we didn't
good
start
thing.
recording.
I didn't start my recorder here either.
So good practice, Jeff.
Yeah, that was
very
a good take. Take one
Yeah, good take.
is out of the way. Okay. Is everybody ready to do the? Oh wait, Dana for
And
some
we've lost
reason.
Dana, of course.
All right, here he is.
Yeah, as soon as you went into intro, it dropped me for some reason.
Okay.
So I'm here.
Okay, good. Well, that was just a
I've got
rehearsal.
my recorder going.
Okay, I have my recorder going.
I do
you
too.
have? Okay. So APG 392 3 2 1. That's why I always giggle. Because the latency there. Okay, very good. Now that we have it all out of our system. Well defined. Okay. Here we go. Take 2.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 392.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio Maine Man Micah in Portlandia, Maine. Today's show is recorded on the 18th of September, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Get you right and he's flying by with the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, spilled coffee diverts a flight to Ireland. A Nairobi lawmaker proposes a resolution to end in-flight flatulence. More news, your feedback, and this week's plane tale, well defined. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 392 is ready for pushback. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we cover the week's news in aviation and also your great feedback. And joining me from his studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, former captain for an international airline based in London, it's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Great to be back with you guys. And hi from the United Kingdom, where the sun is just setting. What a shame I don't have my lovely co-host beside me. She's not here anymore.
Yeah, what is it that you said? Also joining us from his studio near the Concord Covered Bridge in Smyrna, Georgia. He's a barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and a captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier. It's Captain Dana.
Yay, I'm back for the second episode in a row. Great to be back.
Excellent. All right. That was short and sweet. Well, so as I mentioned, we are all three of... Oh, wait, hang on. There's somebody else here. I just looked over to my left and noticed a fine-looking gentleman sitting there. And so that means I need to find this. Also joining us from Maine Man Micah Studios in Portland, Maine, it's Maine Man Micah.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to have you right here in the kitchen studios of my house.
It's great to be here. And let me tell you what, folks. Not only are the digs really nice here, but this guy can cook. And I'm looking forward to the stuff that you have simmering on the stove and cooking in the oven right now.
I'm salivating thinking of it.
We've got some homemade chicken soup that you already had a chance to taste. We've got a meatloaf that'll be going to the oven very, very soon. We've got kasha varnishes that Dana can vouch for.
Oh,
And I think we'll have some kind of green vegetable just to say we're trying to do something healthy. Oh, and don't forget,
Beer.
tessellation.
Yes, wonderful Maine beer. And so I'm so happy to be here. I'm on a layover in Portland, Maine, and going to be back here again next week. So perhaps another show from here next week. We're not sure exactly when we're going to be doing it, but Yeah, so I'm very, very pleased to be with Micah. He picked me up from the hotel and brought me over here, and we spent about 45 minutes setting up and snacking on some stuff. And so here we are. And Micah, for those who have never heard of you, like, I don't know, they've been living under a rock, but tell us a little bit about you and your involvement in aviation.
I have no involvement in aviation whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, you do. What do you call these podcasts that you're so involved with?
I'm an av geek and part of the Airplane Geeks, contributor at large for the Airplane Geeks podcast. I'll call it a sister podcast to the Airline Pilot Guy because we're all friendly and really love one another. Also was very proud to be able to co-host Plane Talking UK this past weekend, and also happen to be the aviation correspondent for WBZ's overnight show with Bradley J.
Wow, see what I mean? This guy, he's into a lot of things. Okay, we're going to do something a little bit different this week. We're going to go ahead and start right off with our news segment. So here you go. Or here we go, I should say.
Stand by for news.
Okay, we start off with an article from CNN.com. A plane carrying 326 passengers diverted after pilot spills coffee. It doesn't say which pilot, does it? I wonder. Transatlantic flight was forced to divert to the Republic of Ireland because a pilot spilled a cup of coffee on the aircraft's controls, it has emerged. According to the Air Accidents Investigation Branch, the Airbus 330-243, operated by Condor, was traveling from Frankfurt in Germany to Cancun in Mexico on February 6 when it was forced to jettison fuel and divert to Shannon Airport. The 49-year-old pilot, who has over 13,000 hours of flying experience, had been given a cup of coffee without a lid by cabin crew and accidentally knocked it over as the plane was flying over the North Atlantic Ocean, carrying 11 crew and 326 passengers. Some of the liquid spilled onto the audio control panel, which became very hot and produced smoke and a burning smell. The damage caused significant communication difficulty for the flight crew and forced them to wear oxygen masks, the report said. The equipment became so hot that one of the buttons on the control panel began to melt, which prompted the pilot to divert. Yeah, that's getting pretty serious when things are melting on your control. The Air Accidents Investigation Branch said that there were no injuries and that the airline had since changed its procedures to ensure cup lids are provided for flights on all routes. The operator also issued a flight crew notice reminding pilots to be careful with liquids. A spokesman for Condor, part of the Thomas Cook Group, told CNN in a statement, Flight 2116 from Frankfurt to Cancun on the 6th of February 2019 diverted to Shannon as a precautionary measure due to a minor amount of smoke in the cockpit after a liquid spillage. And that goes on to talk about the fact that they investigated the airplane, everything was okay, they mopped up the coffee, and all is good, and that they apologize for any inconvenience for the guests on this flight. So, not the first time that we've seen stories of coffee or other liquid spillage on electronics in the center console, and probably won't be the last. But
now, main man Micah, you're there. What was that old black and white movie, Charlton Heston or something? And he was a pilot in an aircraft where they tried to replicate why this aircraft had crashed.
Nick, we must be brothers from another mother, because I was thinking the exact same thing.
Were you?
Fate is the Hunter, and it was 1964.
Hunter, that's right.
And which has nothing to do with the book Fate is the Hunter, completely different plots, but it starred Glenn Ford, Nancy Kwan, Suzanne Plachette, and Rod Taylor. And the whole plane came down because they thought an engine was out because coffee spilled on a panel, and it showed that the engine was out. That was really good.
Exactly
Suzanne
right.
Plachette. I love Suzanne Plachette.
And Nancy Kwan wasn't so bad either.
I don't remember Nancy Kwan, but I do remember Suzanne Plachette.
So it wasn't Charlton Heston. Okay, I sort of had it in my mind that he was the test pilot who took it up and tried to replicate what had happened.
Yeah, no, it was Glenn Ford, and,
Okay.
and it was a terrific. Well, it wasn't such a great film, but it was pretty typical of the time, filmed in black and white. And when you see the aircraft on the film, you could say that that kind of aircraft, what the model they put, would never have flown. It was really very strange looking, but nonetheless, as soon as I heard the story, that's what I thought of. And you know what the results of this are? Basically, the pilots are now required to drink their coffee out of sippy cups.
Well,
Exactly.
funny you should say that, since most of the world do drink their coffee out of sippy cups, and I'm holding up a typical Starbucks beaker with a lid on and a little hole, just like a kid's, kid's drinking mug. I don't know why we don't all aren't all required to use these, because I tell you what, it's not just like spilling your beer over a laptop when you pour coffee over one of those ACPs or a McDo or any of the boxes of tricks that are sitting there on that Airbus, because that will be considerably, by a factor of 10 or more expensive than the best computer you could buy. And it's going to cost the company a lot of money to have that replaced, let alone the cost of the diversion, etc.
What's funny is that in the film, the result was what they decided to do was to seal that panel so that if liquid spilled on it, there wouldn't be any problem. But I guess that's more difficult than going with the sippy cups. The other ruling that came out of this is that they wanted to make sure that the pilots used cups that were the right size for the cup holders.
Yeah, there was another article I was looking at, and it wasn't this one that I have here from CNN, but it showed the cups were huge. The paper cups they were using, that they wouldn't even fit in the cup holder. That's got to be too big.
Well, you know how it
those
goes.
cup holders on the A330, if they're standard Airbus ones, are actually for the standard Airbus beaker, which is a reasonably slim beaker and has no lid on. So there's a bit of a design cock up, because you can only really use one style of beaker unless you hunt around. And I found that this particular size of Starbucks mug, which I'm holding up, is just the right size at the base to fit in the top half of that holder. So you can actually use this mug, and this is the one I actually flew with, and on it says I'm trying to get it so the camera can see it, not that you might care if you're on the podcast. It says Nick's mug, white with one sweetener please. So not only is it a non-spill mug, it actually has, just to remind the guys how I like my hot drinks. And in turbulence and wherever, because this isn't the only problem. Having drinks spilled over the center console is not the only problem, because I've had my nose wheel steering tiller fail because too much coffee had been spilled over it and it had got into the mechanism. And we had an aircraft have quite a major electrical fault trying to get into JFK. And I know a bit about it because I was waiting at JFK for this aircraft to arrive, because so much over the years, so much liquid had been spilled out of the coffee cup hole onto the tray where the flight bag sits. And there was a little hole in that tray designed to allow a little bit of liquid to seep away. Sadly, that liquid seeped away into the avionics bay and dripped directly onto one of the major electrical transformers down there until it went fizz bang. And the boys came into JFK with half their electrics out. So it's actually quite a major problem. And the answer is be disciplined about what you drink out of on the flight deck. Always get the coffee passed to you round your back on the outboard side. Never pass drinks over the center console. And then these stupid mistakes won't happen.
But you know what happens? You go in to buy your coffee, and you go to 7-Eleven or whatever, and you pay your $1, and you get a cup this size, you know. But then for just a nickel more, you can get a big cup like that. And for just a nickel more than that, you can get a 50-gallon drum filled with it. So, you know, for the extra 10 cents, you get the big cup.
Yeah, well, fortunately, that doesn't happen with us on our plane.
Well, here at APG, we're not experts at not spilling coffee or any other beverages on our computers. However, I can assure you my solution to that problem is I don't drink coffee. It's very plain and simple.
Well, and I was going to say, we would never have a problem with spilling coffee in our steering tiller stuff area. What would you call that?
the side case holder there.
Yeah, because it would have to be very caustic liquid to cut through the stainless steel cable that is connected from the steering tiller all the way back to or down to the nose wheel steering. So there is an advantage having that old technology, I guess.
No, yeah, I mean we're not relying on completely total electronical data transfer via a solenoid or a transfer unit that's using electronic signals to move the steering.
But that's the future, Dana. That's the future.
That is the future. I know, right? So that's a wonderful thing about our airplane. So, but no, I actually don't drink coffee. I don't drink tea. As a matter of fact, the only thing I drink on the airplane is water, and that's always in a bottle.
There you go.
So for those non-coffee drinkers out there, you don't have to worry about it.
Much less likely to spill when you're sucking from a bottle.
No, that's very true. I'm not going to. I normally would say something, Nick, but I'm not going to. I'm pleading the fifth.
By the way, Anthony Vaught, I guess, or Vaught, I think, in the chat room says it was definitely the captain. He said,
"Yeah, I had actually heard it was the captain, and he had put the cap on his tray, and it tipped over, which is a stupid place to stick it because that's really." Very easily knocked from there. So he ought to have known better.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Steph did say that I was in charge of HR today, so I will just make sure that everybody needs to know that you got to be very careful where you stick it.
Yes. Vote. Okay.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, exactly.
The coffee.
Yes. Okay. Moment of silence for a second here. This is my edit point. I meant to play this sound effect that I made specifically for this news item, and this is what you're going to hear before you hear me reading it.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I'm a coffee man. I know all about the coffee beans. I'm a coffee man.
There we go. I was going to lead off with that and then probably have that playing in the background. It was all going to be so nice.
Well, it will be for the podcast.
You'll just have to listen to the audio.
I ever listen to.
All right. Well, let's move on to the second item in our news folder, and that is U.S. Airlines. Nope, hang on. I'm going to screw it up again.
We're going green. We're going green. We're going green. We're going green.
Dang it.
We're gonna take care of.
Well, when I was experimenting with this, it went much more smoothly. Hang on.
We're going green. We're going green. We're gonna take care of the earth. We're going green.
That's what I was going to do. Oh, boy. Maybe we should start the whole show over. Okay, here we go. U.S. airlines are increasing their emissions of climate-changing gases much faster than they are boosting fuel efficiency, according to an environmental group's report. The International Council on Clean Transportation said Thursday that carbon dioxide emissions and fuel burning rose 7% from 2016 to 2018, overshadowing a 3% gain in fuel efficiency. The report's authors say airlines could reduce emissions and fuel consumption more than 25% by buying newer planes and filling them with more passengers. The report ranked Frontier the most efficient among the 11 largest U.S. airlines. The Denver-based carrier has added more than 40 Airbus jets with more efficient engines. New York-based JetBlue ranked last. You said something, David?
I was just going to comment on it. That's because they never get into the air.
No, that's not true. JetBlue spokeswoman Tamara Young said the airline score dropped because researchers considered seating density. JetBlue has fewer rows in coach, and it burns fuel by operating more of its flights in congested areas like New York. The airline has ordered more fuel-efficient Airbus jets. The Transportation Council is a nonprofit group that works with governments to set fuel economy standards and pushes for stricter regulations to limit pollution. The council hired the researchers who uncovered Volkswagen's emissions cheating. A trade group for U.S. airlines disputed the environmental group's findings. Quote from Airlines for America spokesman Carter Yang. The fact is that the U.S. airline industry is a green economic engine. When you look at the bigger picture, the U.S. carriers transported 42% more passengers and cargo in 2018 than in 2000, and we did it with just a 3% increase in total emissions. So I'm thinking to myself, isn't it still like air travel? I know we throw out a lot of carbon emissions and such, but compared to the same number of people getting into cars and driving around to go from place to place, seems to me that getting on a bigger group of people on an airplane, even though it does spit out a lot of, it puts out a big carbon footprint, I think it's still less of a footprint than it would be in alternative forms of transportation. Wouldn't you guys agree?
I've never seen it actually researched, Jeff. So it sounds right because after all, if you're going to drive halfway across the country and every passenger or every perhaps two passengers, because most people are on their own in the car on average, they're going to consume all that gas. So yeah, I think the passenger fuel consumption per seat is less than driving cars. You're quite right. And of course, we get a lot of a hit over this. There's an awful lot of noise made about air pollution from aircraft. I never hear of anyone complaining about pollution by merchant vessel or by cruise liners. So what about that?
True. And in this article, it says that aviation, I guess all of aviation, accounts for a small number or amount of greenhouse gas emissions, about 2.5% worldwide. So that is still a pretty low figure. But I guess they're concerned that it's growing, and they want to make sure that it doesn't grow too rapidly, I suppose.
The information that I've seen on this indicate that airlines and aircraft are far less polluting than vehicles in general. First of all, your jet engines are far more efficient. Additionally, as Nick was pointing out, what you find with the boat traffic and ship traffic is they're usually using bunker fuel, and they are very, very dirty. Now they're converting to natural gas slowly but surely, but it's completely and totally filthy. And because you are transporting more people on an aircraft based on the amount of fuel burned, it's far more efficient than vehicles. Just like buses are more efficient than individual vehicles and trains.
One could argue also that there's a lot more air traffic than there has been in the past. There are more aircraft in the sky. So, you take the total. I mean, maybe, okay, our diesel engine Mad Dog that we fly isn't very fuel efficient. But, when you take, maybe it's two aircraft or one, maybe that's what's taking up the total count and increasing the amount of air pollution. However, I still don't think we're having that big of an effect on the atmosphere at all.
Now, I guess the beginning of the article here is basically saying, it's increasing, but the spokesman for Airlines for America made a very good point. He said, look what's happened between now and back in 2000. We had 42% more passengers and cargo than in 2000, and we only increased total emissions by 3%. So I think that's actually pretty good, wouldn't you say?
I think it's great. The other thing to bear in mind is that aircraft pollution, while it's not pollution, seems to be polluting and visible because you see contrails. So people who don't know anything see contrails, or what I'm not even going to say the other word, but see the contrails and think, oh my gosh, look at all that smoke coming out of the airplane. And as we all know, it has nothing to do with smoke.
I spray my chemtrails.
It's chemtrails.
Yeah, we have to spray those, I'm afraid. Just to keep everyone under control.
A pull quote from this article: reports like Thursday's could give a boost to flight shaming, discouraging people from flying to avoid pumping more carbon into the atmosphere. Hope that's not the case.
I mean, it's interesting. They talk about the expansion of air traffic over the period. But of course, if people are expanding, they're probably going to be buying new airplanes. So new airplanes are almost by definition considerably more fuel economic than the previous generation. So it's a picture that's looking up, not down.
And just an aside, I was on the way to to work this trip on Monday morning, and I had a conversation, because I'm in my uniform, and I had a conversation with a man, an older gentleman, who was very inquisitive about my job and flying, and kind of an average person. And he started asking me about whether the Earth was round or flat.
No, really? You met a flat earther?
I did. And although he didn't claim that he was, but he said that he spends a lot of time, because he's a stay-at-home man or husband, and his wife is the one that does the work, and he was accompanying her to her job that morning on the train, because I guess he was kind of like her bodyguard. And I, at first I thought maybe he was just joking around. Then I realized he was serious. And then after we finished the subject of flat Earth and spherical Earth, he started asking me about chemtrails, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, wow, amazing.
Well, it was only Eratosthenes, the Hellenic astronomer, in the year 194 BC. Effectively, he was born. He lived to 276. He worked it out. So the fact that now, I don't know, all those years later, how come we're still wondering if some bloke back in ancient Greece could work it out? How come we're still thinking about it?
I had the answer.
Because
YouTube.
That conspiracy has been going on since the year 194, Nick.
Yeah, it must have been. Exactly. Yeah.
I was going to say, people still believe in aliens. I mean, really. So, I mean, everybody's entitled to believe what they want to believe, whether it be factually true or not proven. People are entitled to believe what they want to believe in the end. But we all know the truth. The question was, can the captains have the ability to turn off discretion over when to turn off the chemtrails, or is it always on? I always leave it on because it looks cool.
Well, I have not seen the controls yet. I think that they're just it's just happening without my knowledge, apparently.
Well, yeah. They put it. They often remarket as seatbelts, Jeff. So every time you put the seatbelts on.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Item C. This is from defensenews.com. And it's a story about the U.S. Air Force KC-46, that very successful
not another
tanker product, and they're having more issues. They've had a lot of issues with this airplane, and apparently the latest, in a move that could have major impacts on the already delayed tanker program, the U.S. Air Force has indefinitely KC-46 from carrying cargo and passengers. The decision was made after an incident occurred when the cargo locks on the bottom of the floor of the aircraft became unlocked during a recent flight, creating concerns that airmen could potentially be hurt or even killed by heavy equipment that suddenly burst free during a flight. As a result of this discovery, the Air Force has submitted a Category 1 deficiency report and working with Boeing to identify a solution. And just so that you understand, this is not the first issue with this airplane. There are some other Category 1 deficiencies. Category 1 is the worst, the most serious, the most significant. The tanker's remote vision system, or RVS, the camera system that allows the KC-46 boom operators to steer the boom into a receiver aircraft without having to look out a window or use visual cues, provides imagery in certain lighting conditions that appears warped or misleading. Boeing has agreed to pay for potentially extensive hardware and software fixes, but the Air Force believes it will be 3 or 4 years until the system is fully functional. They said that they have recorded instances, the Air Force has, of the boom scraping against the airframe of receiver aircraft. That's not good. Although that's what it sounded like in the 141, but I don't think it was scraping the fuselage. It just had a weird sound. But so apparently that's not a good thing, obviously, and that's linked to the RSV, the remote vision system as well. And this is an interesting one. I thought the last one listed in this article, Category 1 deficiency. They need to redesign the boom to accommodate the A-10, which currently does not generate the thrust necessary to push into the boom for refueling. This problem is a requirements change by the Air Force, which approved Boeing's design in 2016. So so if you're an A-10 driver, I guess you can get kind of like connected or sort of touching the boom, but it doesn't have enough oomph to get the thing completely latched on to the boom. And of course, if you're not latched on, you're not going to get any fuel.
So have Boeing built a bit of a stiff one here?
I think so. Yes, that's one way to put it, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, having problems getting it. HR's not here. I'm not
Getting it in.
I'm
We
not
can't
saying
get it-
one
the
word.
A-10 pilots can't get it in. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And that's based on Air Force design.
I'm
That
glad I
wasn't
didn't finish that comment.
That wasn't Boeing's problem. That was the Air Force design. They forgot, oh, yeah, the A-10 doesn't have quite enough thrust, unfortunately.
I think the A-10 has no problems getting it in with a KC-135.
Wow.
Different amount of thrust, But
That's what she said.
but let's look at the KC-46 for a minute. You can't fuel from it. You can't carry cargo with it. You can't carry passengers with it. What does it do?
You can convert it into a hotel.
You could take it around the circuit.
Yeah, obviously some major issues they're having to deal with. Oh, that's sad.
No way. Boeing having some major issues to deal with? Say it isn't so.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to D. Battle Creek, Michigan. From Fox17online.com. Before Betty Young took off for an afternoon flight on Thursday, she inspected every inch of her airplane. Think you had some mail, somebody. She checked the flaps on the wings, the oil and gas tanks, and the tires below. And she's quoted here, "I feel better climbing in my airplane than I do in my car," she said during an interview at the WK Kellogg Airport, where she keeps her plane. That's for sure. She then kicked away the stops that held the Cessna 172 four-seater plane in place, pulled it into the hangar with her hands. It's a routine she's been doing for decades. It's what she did August 30th on her 90th birthday. "I flew my airplane all by myself and pulled it out of the hangar all by myself," Young said about her birthday flight to Jackson, Michigan. "And my friends all got there before I did. So they were all waiting on the tarmac, singing happy birthday when I got out of my airplane." That day, they showered her with hugs and cards before eating some of her chocolate birthday cake. Some of her friends, who are pilots as well, flew their own planes from Kalamazoo and Battle Creek, 50 miles away, to the celebration in Jackson. 3 of the pilots were women, she said. She's grateful to have friends who love to fly as much as she does. She said she didn't even start taking flying lessons until she was over 50 years old. Wow. But she's been doing it for about 40 years now, 90 years old. That's a pretty amazing accomplishment, I think.
I'm very impressed. And if I can still be flying airplanes at 90, I'll be very chuffed. If I'm still alive at 90, I'll be pretty impressed.
I think you have a pretty good shot at it, Nick, based on the longevity of your father.
Well, fingers crossed. Exactly right. Yep.
Well, I think this is fantastic. It just proves that, age doesn't limit you in aviation. The only thing that would limit you is your medical ability to hold a license, hold a medical. That's it. But why not? Why not enjoy life?
Exactly. Okay. I think we can move on to the next news article. Excuse me. A Nairobi lawmaker wants to put an end to in-flight flatulence on airplanes. She put forth a plan to end what she considers a big problem. Range constituency representative Dr. Lillian Gogo of Nairobi called for a resolution to people passing gas in airplane cabins during a parliamentary debate. Oh, wait a minute. I think some punctuation needs to be in there. Anyway, she called for a resolution to people passing gas in airplane cabins during a parliamentary debate Wednesday regarding the National Assembly Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing. According to Nairobi News, there is one irritant that is often ignored, and this is the level of farting within the aircraft, she said. There are passengers who literally, or literary? I think it means literally, irritate fellow passengers by passing bad smell and uncomfortable fart.
Well, perhaps they're just writing about bad smells and uncomfortable.
Oh, that's true.
Farts.
Maybe that's reading some really.
I don't know.
bad
I
work.
think the person lets out the fart is very comfortable afterwards.
That's
yeah,
true.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's only uncomfortable for the smeller, not the.
That's right.
Not the dealer. If there is anyone given irritant that makes people fight on board, it is the fart. It is terrible within the plane.
I love this English. English is the fourth language.
Let's see. When pressed by another member of Parliament on how exactly she would implement such reform, she said it starts with staff training. We need special training on aircraft crew.
The cabin crew now go around going, no farting, no farting. It was you. Yep, stop it.
Okay, well, she goes in a little bit more detail. We need special training on aircraft crew so that they can provide medicines like bicarbonate of soda to passengers after meals and drinks have been served. We should also have paramedics who are trained in basic first aid included in the international and local flights. Apparently, some of this farting is so bad that it causes major medical issues.
I wonder if Acme Pink flies there, and there was perhaps an issue with one of their pilots.
Is that where? Oh, I see what you're. Yeah, Acme Pink might be. Yeah,
Acme Pink. No, I didn't know about that. It could be actually a possibility. But now, forgive me, I'm not a great drinker of bicarbonate of soda. But isn't it quite a gassy liquid?
It is.
Especially
So wouldn't that actually make the problem worse?
I would think so. I don't know how that whole science works, but I don't think that bicarbonate of soda is going to help you, is it?
No, it won't. That's like Alka-Seltzer.
Absolutely. And on top of that, apparently this member of parliament has not been schooled on Delta P because there are some pressure differentials that sometimes cause this to happen legitimately. Although I think perhaps the law should be that only anesthesiologists should be allowed to flatulate on aircraft because they are absolutely professional gas passers.
That is true. Man, wait a minute. Now I got to find the rim shot. You got to warm him. Got to hit him on the shoulder or something when you're going to do that. Okay, but did you say Delta P?
Oh yeah, Delta P.
Thought so. I love this.
Yeah.
She also suggested limiting alcohol consumption on flights could amount to less cheese cutting as well.
That I'm lost.
Well,
Is
you
that
know,
some
certainly less
euphemism?
wine, because then you'd have less cheese to go with the wine.
Well,
I think you
poured-
cut the cheese is another term for farting.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yes,
I
that
think
is
it's an
another
American.
term.
Yeah, that's probably just
I'm a little worried about the state of Kenyan law if this is one of their lawmakers.
I mean,
Well-
you could actually hang individual oxygen masks throughout the entire aircraft. That
Thought
way,
you were
when-
going to say hang individuals.
individuals as well. So
Yeah.
no, it is Kenya. So
And I was looking at some of the comments of this article and wherever I got it, and somebody said, "Don't forget, they do make what do you all call the
Shredded.
underwear? You call it
There's
shreddies. They make
charcoal
shreddies.
impregnated shredders you can get. Yes.
Exactly. That might
that'd
help.
be kind of lumpy, though.
No.
we
Apparently they're fine and they work well.
We have a listener actually that flies for Kenya Airways, flies 787s, and I'm hoping that he might be listening and perhaps can write in and comment about this particular government official.
Yes. And the
Yes,
problem
good
apparently in the airlines that are flying around that area of the world.
You know, there's one kind of law that says possession is 9/10 of the law, isn't it? Isn't there another one that says he who smelt it dealt it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I think this lawmaker has a really crappy legislation plan here. No pun intended.
Ba-doom, bam. Okay, hang on. How am I doing?
I think it's all going to go up in smoke.
Okay. You reach a certain point.
Will
and
be
then-
if you strike
I
a
know.
match.
I know. Yes.
All right. This one is serious. You remember we talked about this accident on our show last year, I believe, or maybe the year before, a couple of years ago. It's been a while. This crash occurred not too far, Dana, from the area where you live.
That's correct.
And it was a Cessna 500, November 8 Delta X-ray, collided with terrain in a residential neighborhood near Marietta, Georgia, The private pilot and sole occupant was fatally injured. The airplane was destroyed by the impact and post-impact fire. The flight originated from Cincinnati Airport, Ohio, about 6:12 p.m. local time, and was destined for Atlanta Fulton County Airport in Georgia. That's the Atlanta airport or Atlanta area. And let's see, this is from aviationsafety.net or network. The flight was uneventful until the air traffic controller amended the flight plan, which required the pilot to manually enter the new routing information into the GPS. By the way, this is from the final report. A few minutes later, the pilot told the controller that he was having problems with the GPS and asked for a direct route to his destination. The controller authorized the direct route and instructed the pilot to descend from 22,000 feet to 6,000 feet, during which time the sound of the autopilot disconnect was heard on the cockpit voice recorder. During the descent, the pilot told the controller that the airplane had a steering problem, whatever that means, and was in the clouds. The pilot was instructed to descend the airplane to 4,100 feet, which was the minimum vectoring altitude. The airplane continued to descend, entered visual meteorological conditions, VMC, and then descended below the assigned altitude. The controller queried the pilot about the airplane's low altitude and instructed the pilot to maintain 4,100 feet. The pilot responded that he was unsure if he would be able to climb the airplane back to that altitude due to steering issues. The controller issued a low altitude warning again and advised the pilot to climb back to 4,100 feet. The pilot responded that the autopilot was working again and that he was able to climb the airplane to the assigned altitude. This is all just amazing to me. The controller then instructed the pilot to change to another radio frequency, but the pilot responded that he was still having a problem with the GPS. The pilot asked the controller to give him direct routing to the airport. A few minutes later, the pilot told the controller that he was barely able to keep the airplane straight and its wings level. The controller asked the pilot if he had the airport in sight, which he did not. The pilot then declared an emergency and expressed concerns related to identifying the landing runway. Afterward, radio contact between the controller and the pilot was lost. Shortly before the airplane impacted the ground, a witness saw the airplane make a complete 360-degree roll to the left, enter a steep 90-degree bank to the left, roll inverted, and enter a vertical nose-down dive. Another witness saw the airplane spiral to the ground. The airplane impacted the front lawn of a private residence, and a post-crash fire ensued. The aircraft was a Sierra Eagle wing conversion of a Cessna 500 Citation 1. This performance upgrade also allows single pilot operations. However, the NTSB found no record of the pilot receiving training for single pilot operations in the accident airplane. Therefore, it was unlikely that the pilot was properly certificated to act as a single pilot. The pilot, put this one in bold. The pilot historically had difficulty flying the airplane without the aid of the autopilot. Given the pilot's previous experience with the GPS installed in the airplane, it is likely that during the accident flight, the pilot became confused about how to operate the GPS and ultimately was unable to properly control the airplane without the autopilot engaged. So basically, he stalled the airplane and crashed because apparently he did not know how to fly the airplane manually, which is just amazing to me. How does somebody get to this point in his career flying airplanes, if this was his career? I just don't get it.
Sounds like an owner. It sounds like an owner operator.
It could be, but this is a high performance airplane. I know people would argue that fly business jets that a Citation 1 is not a high performance airplane, but it's a jet, and it is high performance compared to a lot of general aviation out there. And the fact that, I mean, how could he even get into an airplane knowing that if the autopilot system isn't working, he's not going to be able to fly the airplane? I just don't.
Well,
I don't get.
How
that
did he pass any of his checks to allow him to get to the stage of flying that he was in without someone realizing this?
I don't know.
Well, they found no record of the NTSB found no record of the pilot receiving training for single pilot operations in the accident.
Yeah, but what about
so he wasn't properly certified for it.
Right, but that's just for that. Let's just take that out of the equation. How does somebody get to the point that he's flying a jet? And, because he's got to have do you have to have a commercial instrument? I mean, you have to have an instrument rating and at least a private certificate to operate a jet. would
No,
imagine.
actually, you don't even need to have an instrument rating as long as you don't go above 18,000 feet.
Okay, well, obviously, he was up around 22,000, which does not
Right, so
necessarily
obviously he had an instrument rating.
well,
One would hope.
yeah, that's the thing. Maybe he didn't have an instrument rating. Maybe he was just operating the airplane. I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise, would it? Because he didn't have the certification for single pilot operation of this airplane. That maybe he didn't have any certificates or licenses.
And that's the unknown here, because they didn't release his name or his certificate information. And from the way it sounds, is he probably was not instrument rated, and thus shouldn't.
They would have said that in this this final report. I would imagine. I don't know. Yeah, but it's just, again, has me shaking my head. Like, how do you, as a person, knowing that you can't fly an airplane unless the autopilot's on, how do you even step into the airplane, knowing that there's a 50-50 chance here, maybe not 50-50 chance, but there's a chance that you're not going to be able to fly the airplane if necessary. I don't know. It just doesn't
and what's amazing here, Jeff, is they really, I'm looking, through the whole thing. The only time that they really even recognize or say anything regarding his certification was the fact that they found no record of the pilot receiving training for single pilot. They don't even talk about whether he was type rating the aircraft, whether it's a private pilot, commercial pilot, instrument pilot. Nothing. There's no indication here at all.
Right, but as I said, again, this is just an excerpt from the final report. So I would imagine if we could probably find there's a link here in the article to the final report, the NTSB investigation, perhaps somewhere in there they go through and they list the qualifications and everything. So I suspect, since that wasn't made, a point wasn't made about that in this excerpt, only about the fact that he wasn't certificated to fly this particular mod or this particular airplane single pilot. I would imagine that that's the only thing that they found that he didn't have. But again, I have not looked at the final report myself. I'm only reading from this excerpt. So.
Well, the first line in the in the final report, the private pilot departed on an instrument flight rules flight plan.
Now, do they mean private pilot because he owns the airplane and it's a private pilot, he's not flying it commercially? Doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't have I would imagine that it means that he does not have a commercial license. But I don't know.
The pilot held the type rating. I'm just scanning through real quick. The pilot had held the type rating for the airplane, but the pilot's personal logbooks were not available for review.
Oh, okay. Where do you see that?
As on page 2, first paragraph.
Okay, I only have one page.
Yeah, I'm at the actual report because I'm interested to.
Okay, I see. I don't have the final. I'm not looking at the final report.
I'm looking at because we're raising some questions here based on some information that would be in there.
Yeah,
not in the excerpt. So
you said he did not have a type rating for the airplane.
He did have a type rating.
He did have a type rating.
He did. On top of page number 2, on the final, it says the pilot held a type rating for the airplane, but the pilot's personal logbooks were not available for review. So as a result, his overall currency and total flight experience in the accident airplane could not be determined.
But at least they'd have the records available from the FAA. What licenses, ratings that he did hold.
There's 13 pages. I'm scanning pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. But we don't need to. The point of this doesn't matter, really. It's the fact that obviously the competency of this pilot was very questionable at best.
At best.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that he needed the autopilot to fly the airplane and he was so underconfident that he couldn't really manage it without is a major concern.
He was instrument rated, multi-engine land, and he was 78 years old. So yes, he was instrument rated. And he had a class 3 medical, and total flight time that they can ascertain is 6,000 hours. So,
wow. And he's instrument rated. I don't know. I don't see how you can't control an airplane.
I suspect at that age, there might have been some loss of some currency and currency issues, possibly, and possibly some type of medical event that was going on. Possibly any number of things. I mean,
could be a can't fly itis.
Yeah, can't fly itis could be, pressurization issues that slow leak in the cabin that you end up with some issues there too. I mean, there's any number of things that could have gone wrong here that we'll never know. But this
well,
is just,
he was down at 4,000 feet, so I don't know if that's going to be a factor. But don't they carry out an autopsy following an accident like this? So
I would
wouldn't they
imagine
be able
so,
to work out if he had a major, I don't know, been a heart attack or something?
Right.
Anyway, I guess to a certain extent we are guessing.
Yes, we are.
yes, we are.
Anyway, just thought that was an interesting
Oh yeah, very.
kind of an end to, because at the time we were just scratching our heads. We had no idea what caused this airplane to go out of control. I mean, we just, I think, likely assumed that it was some kind of a mechanical issue, because he kept saying that he couldn't steer the airplane, but I guess he wasn't capable of steering the airplane was the bottom line.
This is interesting. A friend of the pilot who was the flight instructor who was a flight instructor and the airplane mechanic had flown with the pilot several times, stated that he repeatedly told the pilot that he needed to fly with a co-pilot. The pilot said he preferred to fly alone. The pilot also told his friend that he did not need a single pilot exemption because the airplane had been given a single pilot exemption.
That's not true.
All right, there you go. I'm not going to scan it anymore, but I found that.
So you said the instructor said that, told the guy you need to make sure that you fly with a co-pilot.
Yes.
Ah, yeah.
And then then he turned around and said, the airplane is fine. I don't need the pilot exemption.
Well, the airplane probably was fine.
Yeah, it was until it ended a burning hole.
Well, because he wasn't. That's the problem. The weakness is the pilot, not the airplane.
Yeah. So anyways, enough about that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. This I didn't even notice was in our news folder until right this moment. Item G. On Monday night, September 16th, the government of Gibraltar issued a press release following the closure of Gibraltar Airport on Sunday evening due to air traffic controller sickness. The government statement suggested that when other off-duty controllers were then asked to cover his absence, no one was willing to do so. The statement went on to say that the government regrets that the controllers were clearly not being as cooperative as they could have been. Speaking on behalf of the controllers working for NATS at Gibraltar Airport, Prospect National Secretary Steve Jari said the Gibraltar government has either misunderstood or misrepresented the position. On Sunday, one of the two controllers rostered to cover the afternoon-evening shift called in sick. The day shift controller was available to cover the afternoon, but was unable to work beyond 7 p.m. because of the legal restrictions on controller hours. Those same legal restrictions prevented any of the other controllers from being called in. Two controllers were on leave and overseas, and thus unavailable for short notice cover. In short, it wasn't a lack of cooperation or unwillingness. It simply wasn't possible for any of the other controllers to provide cover. The increasingly commercial nature of air traffic management contracts means there are constant pressures on cost from airport operators and airlines. Service providers such as NATS have little choice but to respond. However, cuts in staff numbers come at a price in terms of resilience. So apparently there was an issue caused by sickness. They didn't have the proper staffing. And legally, the ones that were available to work couldn't because of the those rules, those laws that we have to abide by. And I guess the government was a little kind of in a tizzy when it came to the fact that they had to shut down the operation until they could find a controller to take over.
By the sounds of it, the staffing levels are at an absolute minimum, and the controllers had been propping the airport operation hours up by doing their best, but because at this particular time they were down below the number required, nobody on call to fill in for sickness, the tower wasn't able to operate. So sounds to me like the government is being a bit disingenuous, and they just need to make sure they've got sufficient people on call and available to work. Otherwise, you just can't operate an airport. Come on, guys.
Well, I have a question. This I don't know the answer. I'm just thinking. But I know there are several airports that we fly into that when the control tower closes, it becomes a non-controlled airport. I don't know what the logistics are at this particular airport, or whether it can even be possibly done, or whether it's impossible, based on regulations. But that's just a thought. Why couldn't it be uncontrolled airspace?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I don't know what the EASA regulations are concerning that, but this is an international airport, and it has very, very tight airspace restrictions since it's right on the edge of Spanish airspace,
Mhm.
and Spain get very upset if anyone tries to or maneuvers through their airspace to get to Gibraltar Airport. And also, it's an extremely difficult airport. So I think the likelihood of them being able to operate it without a controller would be pretty much zero, since Al has talked about it at length and said that it's when he used to operate in there, it was a captain's only landing because of all the threats that are presented to crews that try and fly in there regularly.
Yeah, and see, that's like, I'm not very familiar with the area. Obviously, you're far more familiar, and even I was thinking maybe one of our listeners, like Captain Al, could chime in and say, and maybe give us some feedback as to why it couldn't be a non-controlled airport. So that's very good points there, Nick.
Al has spoken about it tremendously and said it's a very, very difficult airport to land in. The crosswinds are really difficult, and even he has been diverted many, many times to other airports because of the winds and the crosswinds. Additionally, Gibraltar is the only airport that I know of, and Liz has just mentioned it, that has a road, a regular highway that runs right through it, crossing the runway, that needs to be closed down every time an aircraft lands. But I guess my question, Nick, that I wasn't sure if you would know about, is based on its location. It's a very strategic location. Does the base, the Air Force base or the RAF base, use that same airport? And it wouldn't it be a matter of national security? Wouldn't they call in RAF controllers to keep it open?
Well, I think they do have RAF controllers there. So I think if needs be, had it been a military requirement to keep it open, they would have. Military personnel are allowed to work out with the normal civilian hours. So because it's exigencies of the service, you can be told to work for 36 hours straight if needs be, because that's what is expected of someone in the military. But I don't suppose there were any military operations, or that wasn't required, and they're not going to do that for a civilian aircraft.
Yeah, this airport, Dana, is extremely complex, and I just can't imagine it operating without air traffic control. I don't think it's possible, actually.
And it's not a regular occurrence, to my knowledge, in Europe. Now, of course, the airports I flew into were always, big major international airports always had every service you can imagine. But I don't think there's nearly the number of airfields in Europe that work in the same way that many of the smaller airports in the United States do.
Yeah, and that was the basis of my question. As soon as I started thinking about it, and when Liz mentioned the road crossing, now I exactly know the airport.
But it's an interesting. No, I was trying to make the point that it's an interesting thought. Why even on a benign airport are there very few airports that don't have air traffic? I don't know. I'm willing to be educated on that by our listeners. Perhaps they can let me know.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, very interesting. I had not heard about the airport closure in this controversy. That ends our news segment. Yay.
Hey.
And now it's time for us to kind of get caught up with each other and see what's been happening since the last episode. And Dana, how have you been, sir? Are you still on vacation?
I am indeed. I start a trip tomorrow morning and looking forward to stepping back into the flight deck. I actually had to look up a few things just to refresh my memory about, number one, my login, to make sure I can sign into the crew portal to log in when I sign in when I go to work tomorrow. So that's, that's what happens when you're away from work. And, all this fandangled technology that we have, these iPhones and whatever, I'll picture my puppy there, that we have. Every time I log on my iPhone, it recognizes my face. I never have to type the password in. So
you can't remember your password.
I couldn't remember it, but I figured out on the iPhone how to go in pull up my password.
Well, how long has it been? It's only been a couple of weeks, I think, right?
3 weeks.
Point
And but the problem was I changed it just before I went on vacation.
Forced to change it every so often.
Yeah.
That
was
could
it?
be a problem.
I think it's 90 days or something like that.
Maybe use LastPass or something, man. The password manager. That's the way to go.
That's what Leo Laporte would tell you.
Yes, and that's what Captain Jeff Nielsen would tell you too.
What, LastPass?
LastPass. Yeah.
All right,
You only
let me
have one password. The last password you have to remember.
Last password.
Yeah, it's called just LastPass.
Yep, I wrote it down. LastPass. I wrote it down.
That's really, I mean, that's the way I remember my passwords. I just remember one very long, complicated password, and then once that's done, it really helps you remember some really crazy passwords. It doesn't really, you don't really remember it; just fills it in for you. So
until somebody hacks it, and then they get all your passwords.
Yeah, they can't hack it.
So, anyways, yeah. So I resolved that issue last night. Updated my working computer for work to make sure I have the most current data. So when I go into work, and I'll do it again tonight before I leave tomorrow morning. And I have a Birmingham overnight coming up. Birmingham, not England, folks. Birmingham. My airplane doesn't go that far. Birmingham, Alabama, and a Daytona Beach layover, which I'll be going to my friend's place for dinner in Daytona Beach at, oh my God, I'm having a brain fart, of course. I'll think of the name of their restaurant here shortly, right there on Main Street, very close to our overnight. So, of course, we won't have this released before the time I'm in Daytona. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I haven't flown in, 3 weeks. So, it should be fun.
Okay, people, you've been warned.
I have been warned.
No,
people have been warned. They have been warned. And you know what the best part about it is? I am looking forward to a week of flying, and it looks like the weather is going to be okay.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I'll tell you what. Right now, I wouldn't want to be flying around the Houston area.
No, Houston. I don't go. Well, I do go to Omaha. Yeah. They may get some of that.
I think you're fine. As long as you don't get too far north, up in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area, it looked like they were having some nasty weather as well. And then off the Carolina coast, some pretty nasty stuff. But I've been very fortunate on this trip to not run into any weather at all. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's a huge difference between the summer. I mean, after the summer, and I don't know if you saw that memo that came out about the perfect storm. Which was, we had a lot of issues going on. I honestly wasn't exaggerating this summer when I said that it was a very, very difficult and rough summer, especially for us junior folks. We just got hammered. So it was a nice break. I needed to get away and not think about work for a few weeks. And it's been marvelous. And I start 3 days tomorrow, and then I have 2 days off, and then it's just 6 straight days on. And then guess what? I get recurrent training. So I'm getting, recurrent and getting ready to go in the sim, and I'll be fresh off the line of at least flying for 9 days before I go in. So
yay.
That's it. That's all that's going on with me. It's pretty low key. Hopefully next week I can update you on what it's like flying out there in the real world again.
Alrighty. I'm going to go next because I'm going to save the best for last. Captain Nick has some good stuff to tell us about since our last episode. He's been a busy man. I have been, I went through recurrent training. I think, though, I did a show after recurrent training, didn't we? We did it on Friday. So nice, quiet weekend. Girls came back from the beach and left on this 4-day trip on Monday. And it was a double Syracuse layover, Monday night, Tuesday night, and now I'm here in the wonderful city of Portland and with our main man, Micah. And the weather up here in Syracuse, New York, and Portland, Maine is wonderful. Temperatures in the 50s, 60s, low 70s. In Atlanta, still quite warm, although I guess today was a little bit cooler. They got a little bit of a break with the temperature. While I was in Syracuse, before I got to Syracuse, a few days before, I was contacted by Stefan Ballmer and Tom Catalino, and they were noticing on the APG community calendar that I was going to be in the Syracuse area and wondered if I would be interested in having some sort of a meetup while I was there. And I said, absolutely. And so on Monday, Stefan, who is a physics professor at Syracuse University, and our layover hotel is right there, basically on the Syracuse University campus. He picked me up, and we drove up around where the airport is to a place called Vietnamese Noodle House, I believe. I have a little audio from that. And also Tom Catalino was able to join us as well. And so pulled out the H5 and made a little recording of our meetup on Monday night. So here it is. Hi there, I'm on a trip, and I'm in Syracuse, I guess North Syracuse, New York, on a layover. And a couple of folks looking at the APG community calendar noticed that I was going to be in the area. And they said, hey, let's get together for dinner or some kind of a little meetup. And so here we are at, what's the name of the place? The Vietnamese Noodle House in North Syracuse. And let's see, I guess we'll start with Stefan, who picked me up from my hotel next to the Syracuse University, where he works. So he's going to introduce himself, tell you all a little bit about himself, and then we're going to hand it over to Tom.
Hey, everybody. This is Stefan Malmer here. I'm very glad to meet Jeff here and welcome him to Syracuse before the summer is over. Not sure whether he's aware, but the weather will turn worse here and later in the year.
Well, so what do you do for a living?
Well, there's this physics thing that keeps me busy during the day. Pays for my flying as well, but I'm also CFI in the flying club here. And we have a couple of airplanes here in the Syracuse area. So if you're interested in flying, please contact us. This is a great place to do it.
What's the name of the club?
Syracuse Flying Club, appropriately named. Yep. Yeah, then I hand over to Tom, is it?
Yes, Tom Catalino. I joined the flying club about a month ago. I am working on my private pilot's license. I have about 25 hours. Loving the instruction, loving the club, having an absolute blast flying the airplane, new experiences every single time, which my wife is probably pretty sick of hearing about. She reminds me quite often that she has not bought a ticket. I'll tell her a story about experience I had on one of my lessons, and she'll say, Tom, I haven't bought a ticket yet. I said, I know, honey. It's a good thing because I don't know how to fly yet. So, but having an absolute blast doing it, and happy to meet you, Jeff. Having a real nice dinner here, enjoying the camaraderie, enjoying the fun, and certainly loving the flying.
Excellent. And I say this over and over and over again, and you're going to hear it again. Best part about doing this show is just meeting the people that listen to it, our community. And it's such a pleasure to meet Stefan and Tom for the first time. Hopefully it won't be the last. And again, make sure that you, what's that?
You're back tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I am back tomorrow, actually. This is a great trip. Just one leg today, 2 tomorrow, 2 the next day, and then home on Thursday morning. So, and this is a wonderful time of year to fly into Syracuse. You can't believe how nice this 72 degrees feels for someone who has been exposed to 96, 97 degrees in Atlanta. It's just so hot. We can't wait. I think later this week we're supposed to get a little bit of a break. Anyway, you didn't listen for a weather forecast. So, but speaking of the weather here in Syracuse in the wintertime, I have a lot of experience flying in and out of Syracuse. I used to fly the 727 in and out of here all the time in the winter. Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, Portland, all these places that are just lovely in the wintertime. Sarcasm. Anyway, so looks like dessert is showing up here. So I'm going to end this. Back to you, Jeff, in the studio. Thanks for the throw. And here we are back in the studio. Yeah, great time. I was able to meet up with Stefan last night again, and we went to a Japanese place. So had a nice meal. And Tom was busy taking a flying lesson and also taking up his daughter, who is a brand new flight attendant for JetBlue, who was able to come back into town. And she rode in the back seat, and I think she has some interest in becoming a pilot. So that's pretty cool. So great time. Interestingly, Stefan is a CFII, I believe, and he's one of the instructors at the Syracuse Flying Club. And Tom just joined up, as you heard in this audio, and talking about a small world. I'm not sure that they had ever met each other until our meetup on Monday night. So now they're fast friends. So there you go. Good time, and we're having a great time here in Portland with Micah. Thank you, Micah. I look forward to our dining after we finish the recording. And
I'm on the next slide up, just because I know how good it is.
Yeah. And that is pretty much all for me. So pretty boring. And now we go to Captain Nick. I think he has something much more interesting to talk about.
Doesn't he always?
And he's on mute. Still on mute.
Not only was I on mute, I had a program covering up the mute button, so I couldn't get it. I do apologize.
No problem.
Not brilliant, not brilliant. We've had a nice busy time, actually. Thanks very much. It's been great fun. So what happened was shortly after we finished the one show, but 2 shows ago, Stefan Justice flew out to stay with me. Now they pitched up, and you'll probably hear all about their exploits next time Steph's on the show. But they basically came down here and stayed with me so that they could use our place as a base while they visited the Goodwood Festival of Revival, the Goodwood Revival. I keep wanting to call it the Festival for Speed, but it's a different event. And everyone dresses up in costume, and there's a lot of old cars there, a lot of classic machines. Justice was terribly impressed that he could sort of walk through and get within touching distance of cars, multi-million-pound cars. So he thought that was just fantastic. And each day they doled themselves up into a different outfit and went off and enjoyed themselves. Managed to get a little dinner party together with Nev and Sue and Matt from PT UK. So we had a nice dinner. And then I saw them off on their aircraft. I waved goodbye to them. They drove themselves to the airport on Monday. Since then, nothing much really, except of course the show today. I'm still working on my presentation to the Royal Aeronautical Society, Coventry University, a week today. So I'm hoping to finish that either tomorrow or early next week. And over the weekend, of course, we've got that lovely meetup in Germany at Frankfurt Airport and nearby. So going there to meet Marcus and I think Stefan and someone else, Jeff, help me,
Ollie,
who are podcasters. That's right, Ollie. Yeah, cheers. All podcasters, and as I understand it, there's someone very special flying over from the States to join us. So that's on the Saturday, the 21st. Any idea who that person would be?
Who?
Who's flying, especially flying across from the States?
I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'll be flying over. The number of seats keeps getting smaller and smaller, and now they look like they're getting close to an oversold situation. So I may not be.
Okay. Well, we've got.
So we'll see.
Got our fingers crossed.
If I make it over there, then I hopefully will be able to make it back because I have a trip that leaves on Monday.
Well, yes. You don't want to end up stranded here, do you?
That's what I was going to say. There's only one problem with going is you have to come back too.
That's true.
Good point.
So we'll see.
I'm sure you could get a job here in the UK, no trouble at all, Jeff.
Might have to.
Exactly. So I've been busy.
I move up in seniority.
Maybe.
Hey, Jeff, go, please.
And
Hey,
I
you
did
gotta-
hear that Dana might be trying, but that thing has fallen through.
Yeah, I'm not going to drop my trip for it. It's just the flights are too tight.
Yeah.
Danny, just
Yeah.
got to pay your dues. I've been around here for more than almost 31 years.
There you go.
I'm not far behind you, Jeff. Just
Really?
not-
How many years
not-
have you been with Acme?
I've been around Acme since '91.
Oh, but I mean,
As a pilot, since '07. But I've been involved in the organization since '01.
Okay.
And '91. So,
Yeah.
but that's all right. Continue. I'm sorry.
okay. Well, very good.
So that's
Yeah.
it really from me. I've got myself sorted out for this week, and hopefully we can get a show in that's not on Wednesday next week. Otherwise, I won't be available.
Yeah. You know what? I don't think I'm going to be available next Wednesday either.
I got to tell you, I certainly hope you won't be available next Wednesday because we have plans if it works out the way that we hope. And that is that Max Flight, the producer extraordinaire of the Airplane Geeks, will be coming up this way. And we're going to pick up Jeff on Wednesday, drive up to Lewiston, Maine, where we will be visiting the Collings Foundation and their Wings of Freedom tour. And up in Lewiston, Maine, they're flying in their B-17, their B-24 Liberator, their B-25 Mitchell, the P-51 Mustang, and aircraft I've always wanted to see, I've never seen in person, the P-40 Warhawk, Flying Tiger. So we're hoping to pick up Jeff and go up there, and we even have things set up for flights on one of those aircraft if space is available. So hoping we're going to get Jeff in the air on a Warbird.
Hey,
Just
Jeff.
one? You only get to fly on one? I'll be happy if just get to go up there with you and Max and look at airplanes.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Yes. I've demoted myself to first officer. I'm going to be picking up that trip so I can go with you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a great trip, by the way. It's another 1221 with 2 layovers in Portland, Maine, and with Providence in the middle. And I am so looking forward to hanging with Max Flight and Main Man Micah as we drive up to Lewiston.
Now I've got
It sounds good. Don't you always fly space available, Jeff?
Yes, I fly in any space that's available. Oh, I'm hearing a what is that from? Just started. Hang on. Let's see if it's this. Yeah. Interesting. How this whole time this cord plugged into my iPad has not made any noise at all. And
Did it hit the full charge? Would that have done it?
oh, I wonder. I bet you're right.
You have a cord that makes a noise?
No, it's only 91%.
How
Well,
weird is that?
the charging of the iPad makes a noise through the audio jack, to be exact. Yeah, wait a minute. Or maybe the cord is making a noise. Nah, I don't hear anything.
Stick it in your ear and see.
Thanks for your advice. Okay, so yeah, well, more on that. We're not sure when we're going to record next week, but I am looking forward to, as I said, hang out with you and Max next week and look at some warbirds and possibly fly on one. That'd be a lot of fun.
Ray in the chat room says it must be a vocal cord.
Oh, Ray, you're very
Yeah.
clever. Speaking of very clever, he had a suggestion for our news screen because I talked about it. You know, we should, when we're playing the news bumper, we should have a, you know, like some of these fancy pants video podcasts out there. And he suggested that I do a search for GNUS news. You know, kind of like the
news.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it was a lot more funny when he told it.
Isn't that what you say in Australia? Gnu's mate?
Good news, mate. Might. Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's our getting to know each other segment or whatever we call it. And now, one of the best parts of the show, your feedback. And this is where I try to find this button right here.
Captain, incoming message.
But before I do that, I'm glad that Mike is sitting right next to me. He goes, coffee fund. Yes, you're right. I need to do the coffee fund first. Okay, so here we go. Where did I leave off? All right, that's it for catching up with each other. And now we need to talk to you about something very important, and that's your way to become involved in the financial support of the show. We call it Coffee Fund. Where is it? Where? Oh, that's right. It's way up here. Thank you.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
All right. I always enjoy singing with fellow co-hosts in person. Sing along with Micah. Hey, the Coffee Fund. It's your way to support the show financially if you have the financial resources to do so. And a couple different ways to do it. First is the Coffee Fund Classic method, and that's via PayPal, basically. And you can do a one-time contribution over there or a recurring contribution, as Terry Liu does. So thank you, Terry. We got your recurring contribution. And the other way to do it is to become a producer via Patreon, or become a patron of the show. And since the last episode, we don't have any new patrons, but that's okay, because we have a bunch of great people out there who are patrons of the show, who really help us out with the financial outlays that we make for providing this show for free for everybody out there. So again, thank you for all of you who have taken ownership in the show and have contributed financially. And if you want to learn more about how you can do it, you can head over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did. So will we. Nope, that's the news. I'm in a habit pattern now. This is what we do.
Captain, incoming message.
Break time. Right?
Sounds
Oh
good
no,
to
I
me.
just had mine. Thanks. I thought I timed that perfectly.
Oh, you did. Except I didn't get to do it. So I need to empty the bladder.
Just wear those diapers that Micah has.
Yeah, where are those? All right.
I've seen them all piled in the corner.
Are you going to take a break too, or are you going to entertain the troops?
I'm probably going to check the meatloaf, but I'll be here too.
Yeah, I'm going to go check the too.
Is he allowed to say that? Where's HR?
Steph told me that I was HR today. I said we're in serious trouble.
You are, yes, definitely.
But yeah, it's a good day today, Nick. You should have been here, or should be here. It's homemade chicken soup and meatloaf and kasha varnishkas, which is one of those kreplach things that you've had before. And,
More Klingon food. What are you guys doing over there?
Klingon food. So anyway,
excellent. You know, they were talking about spilling coffee on the center console. When the trouble is that a lot of those bits of kit that you get coffee spilled on, they don't have a hardwired off switch, so they're all software controlled. And if the liquid gets in, well, let me give an example. We've got a computer box we keep all our navigation or input all our navigation stuff on, and it has all our route, etc. There's three. The one's beside the pilot for navigation. The third one at the back of the console is kind of used for communications, but it can take the place of one of the other two if you need to. Anyway, one of the pilots managed to throw some coffee over that one, so it wasn't dreadful, but it started doing some weird stuff, so I turned it off, and after about 10 minutes the screen sort of came back on again, because it was shorting out and the liquid had got behind the switches. And it started writing things to itself. So I'm going, ooh, really? It was just writing gobbledygook, but it was a bit of a concern. The worst thing was that all the communications that we ran through that box, we couldn't recover it on a different box. We couldn't recover it on a different box because to do so, you've got to turn that one off. And obviously, we couldn't turn it off because it was now shorting out. Anyway, it involved a lot of jiggery-pokery to get that sold, but at least it didn't try and melt.
And were those touch screens or are these consoles with buttons?
No, they got buttons and switches and all sorts of things. But, you know, like a lot of this stuff, it's all completely software controlled. So even if you've got a switch, it's a switch that tells a computer to turn it off. It's not actually a physical switch.
I would just think that they would, put O-rings around it and try to make it waterproof one way or another, just for those kind of events. But I mean, if they can make an iPhone waterproof, it would make sense.
Yeah, they can't. They can't make an iPhone waterproof. I suppose that you could try. Just put it in the sink and see if it still works. No, there is a point, but I think they basically assume people are responsible enough not to chuck liquids all over them. But sadly, we're talking about pilots here.
Very true. You find it okay?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Hey, Micah, 23rd.
October 23rd?
I come in at 11:58 p.m. and I'm there for 28 and a half hours.
Oh, I don't know if I can take you that long.
I can't take you that long either. I'm like kidding.
Okay.
I just updated the Google Calendar. Google Calendar. That was fun. But if you're busy, it's okay too.
Should be fine at this point. What time did you say you arrive?
On the 23rd at just before midnight.
Oh, okay.
I get the late night arrival.
All right. That means you got to put together a care package.
No, please. That was very nice of you last time.
I was telling my FO about the time that Micah did that for me and my FO. And my FO was just blown away. It's like, what? Who is that? What? Where'd this come from? I said, I don't know. Some guy.
Some guy just likes you.
It was wonderful. Okay. Let me pull up the virtual folder. And this whole show has been going by so flawlessly. I'm really impressed.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that.
No,
Yeah,
I
it's definitely shouldn't have said that.
We're in trouble now.
No.
That was a mistake.
I hope you saw or heard the sarcasm in that statement. I've accounted for the break, 5 minutes. Thank you, Liz. See, the producer's job never ends on the show. And apparently the HR's job has not as well. Jeff watched you land in Syracuse the other day on their webcam. Oh, I didn't know they had a webcam. Which day?
The day you did the heavy landing.
Hang
on, that's every day.
Yeah, you're really funny. So the first day it would have been my landing. Yesterday would have been Gust's landing. His name is Gust Gust. And
yes, he's got a perfect excuse every time he lands. That was a gusty landing.
Today, as we were flying up, I said, "Oh," and he goes, "What?" I said, "I should have let you fly this leg." And he goes, "Why?" And I said, "Well, sometimes there are people at the airports that if they know I'm coming in for a landing, will take video of my landing." And Mike,
I just texted you the video. I only got the taxi, but I just texted
he has me taxiing in today. But it's a shame. I was really hoping. That was one of the first things I asked Micah when we were getting into his car. I said, "Hey, were you able to get my landing?" And he goes, "Nope." And I went, "Burn it," because it was one of those landings. Though I don't know if you ever have these, Nick. I know you do, Dana, because it's a Mad Dog, and we all have these kind of landings in the Mad Dog, where you're coming in, and all of a sudden the radio altimeter is counting down, 50, 40, 30, and mine went 50, 40. 30, 20, 10. It was like, whoa!
It like speeds up halfway through. Yeah, I had a few of those.
Like that.
Yeah.
And I was I was literally kind of doing, you know how sometimes like you're when you're bowling, I don't know if this is true for lawn bowling or not, but regular bowling that we have in bowling alleys here in the United States, and you bowl the ball down the lane, and it's kind of going a certain way, and you're kind of going, you're trying to, you're moving your body, trying to get it to, what do we call that? Like English or body language or something. That's what I was doing, trying to land the airplane. I was like, oh no, I think I was even saying something like, oh no. And it rolled on. I thought, and had a bunch of people say, nice landing. And I heard Gus up in the front. He could hear everybody getting off the airplane talking about my landing, and he just kept giggling. He kept laughing every time. I said, what? Yeah, they could only see what you were doing during that landing. Said, yeah. But hey, it worked out this time. So they don't have to retire this airplane yet. It's scheduled for retirement on the 9th of February, 2020. The airplane I flew. Cool. Anyway, yeah, I got a list of printout of all the retirement schedule, Dana, today from one of the mechanics, at least the latest that they have. And yeah, the longest or the furthest into the future was like December of 2021, and that's one of the 90s that are left. So that was so sad. Because I was so happy to begin with, because he said, "Oh, when are you going to retire, Captain?" And I said, "December of 2023." And he goes, "Oh, you should be around until a couple of months before you retire." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, we get this thing on our website, and here, I'll go ahead and print it out for you." And so he left, and I'm thinking, "Oh, this is so awesome. This is perfect. I'll be able to stay, and then the last ones are going to be gone just a couple of months before I retire, so I'll get a training bypass, which means I'll bid off to train on another airplane, and they'll say, you know what, Jeff? Just forget it. Stay home.
We'll pay. As long as you get within that 12 to 18 month time frame, that's probably going to happen. Although they may be so short on pilots by the time you get to that point.
You don't really know.
You never know.
How many people on the fleet are senior to you?
I'm number 17 now.
Okay.
So 16, but right now.
Yeah.
But the problem with all this was, and I was just feeling like, oh, this is awesome. This is great news. And then he came up with a printed copy of the retirement schedule, and he goes, sorry, I was wrong. I was off by 2 years. Dang it.
2 years?
Yeah. I said, it's not going to work. We'll see, though. We'll see. Anyway, I can tell you what, though, Dana and I will have plenty of opportunities to fly airplanes to various places for their retirement. Blytheville, Arkansas, San Bernardino, California. They actually have some in storage in Birmingham, but I don't think those are retired ones. I think they're just in like temporary storage or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, my luck, I'd get the Birmingham flight.
Yeah, it's not that far. But hey, if you get paid a decent amount, who cares, right?
Yeah, all you senior guys are going to take them on. I'm probably never going to get a chance, but that's all right. I'm happy.
You never know. They might have a last minute thing and nobody else can do it. All right. Tuesday. That was me, D King. Who does anybody know D King other than D King? Is this what's D stand for? Well, anyway, whoever you are, thanks for
He's the king.
Watching me. And thanks for the king.
The king.
What's the whiz? He's the whiz.
He's the whiz.
All right.
It's good to be the king.
Good to be the king. Okay, enough fooling around. Let's move on. Nick's gonna give me that look like, come on.
I already tried. You're not watching.
I try not to watch it. All right. Hey, let's start with the first item in our feedback folder. And it just so happens to be audio feedback. Here we go.
Hello, APG crew. This is Miklos from Switzerland. I had the distinct pleasure to meet Captain Jeff, Hilal, and Liz at Oshkosh a couple of weeks ago, where I showed up at the trailer completely uninvited, and you guys still asked me in for some drinks, and we had a nice long chat. I hope to meet the rest of the team at some other occasion. You've also encouraged me to send in some feedback, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I'm up to. I am 42 years old with 2 children, and I'd like to become an airline pilot. Now, why would anyone in their right mind want to do that, especially at that age? As a child, I basically had 2 dreams of what I want to become. I either wanted to work in film, or I wanted to become an airline pilot. And I was very lucky that for the past 14 years, I was able to work in the visual effects industry, doing what you would call CGI for feature films and commercials. Unfortunately, that industry went into a decline here in Switzerland, and I had to move on. And I started to think about what to do next. And really, the only thing that came to my mind was that I wanted to become an airline pilot. I've done my PPL a couple of years ago, and I figured that, I still have quite a few steps in my training left, but it would be doable. So in September 2018, I've signed up for my ATPL theory course, which is this grueling 14 exam exercise that every airline pilot here in Europe needs to go through. And I started studying for that while working full time. And I'm very happy to report that just a couple of weeks ago, I was able to finish the last of the 14 exams. Currently, I'm in my CPL training. I just got an hour or two left of that, and then I will move on to the multi-engine part and the instrument part, which I'm very much looking forward to. The reason I'm telling you all this is because I've been listening to the show since around episode 80 or 90, I think, and it's been such a huge source of inspiration and information. It has definitely influenced my decision to go forward with my training. But don't worry, I won't blame you if it doesn't work out. I still have a plan B, which is probably not a bad idea to have in aviation in general. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I'm very much looking forward to many more years of excellent aviation podcasting. I'll keep you posted. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Miklos, for your aviation story. And yeah, we had a great time chatting with you in the RV at Oshkosh, and it's so exciting to hear of people like you with this kind of midlife career change, and we hope that you're successful with it.
It's fantastic. It's great to hear, stories like that. People are changing mid-career and making the jump, because it's exactly what I did, and I encourage it. You can't live in the past and live in fear. If you don't take chances, you never get, you never move forward. So if it's something you've always wanted to do, great. And don't live with regrets, because if you don't take the chance, you'll never know. So congratulations.
Yeah, excellent that you've finished those 14 theory exams. That's a hell of a hurdle to pass, and awful lot of cramming required to get through that. So good job there, sir. And I will keep my fingers firmly crossed for your multi and instrument training to come. But by the sounds of it, you're well on the road, and I reckon you should be all finished up and probably sitting in the right-hand seat of some outfit before you're 45, which should give you 20 years. And that's a pretty good length of career for a pilot, certainly as a second career. So good luck, and I hope it all works out for you.
20 years is a heck of a run, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Please do keep us in touch with your progress, Miklos. And yeah, those 14 exams, that's just crazy. If we had 14 exams that we had to take, Dana, here in the States, I'm not sure I'd be an airline pilot.
I wouldn't either. I would have given up a long time ago.
It's like, no, I'm going to have to find something easier. Of course, it's really hard to figure out what would be easier.
Well, the reward, the reward at the end of the rainbow, as one would say, is well worth it. I mean, it's hard work. So in the end, probably in hindsight, 2020, if we didn't know any different at that point, we probably would have gone through with it, because we just love what we do so much. I certainly jumped through a lot of hoops. I mean, I went to 4 years of college, worked, 4 jobs, put myself through school so I could afford to be able to, live this dream. So, exams. Yeah, I took a lot of exams, college exams, so I could be here. So it's my hat's off to you. Excellent choice to come into the industry, and it's a lot of hard work, and no job anywhere is easy. Everything you do in life always has its challenges. It's just a matter of overcoming those challenges and making it happen for yourself.
And if everything was easy, it wouldn't,
yeah,
it wouldn't be as real.
Everybody could do it.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody could do it. And, our job, quite frankly, although a lot of people on the outside don't understand, it's really, truly a fun job, an enjoyable job, one of the best jobs in the world, in my opinion. However, it's a very challenging job and very, very difficult job to do at times until you become very comfortable in the aircraft. And even when I stepped over to be captain, even though I've been flying the airplane for a very long time, there's still a very steep learning curve, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to be responsible for. So that's what we love about it's what I love about my job. Certainly.
And even after you become comfortable, there are times when it's still challenging and gets your heart rate up, your adrenaline, and just one of those kind of jobs. But we love it.
Yeah, we love it. We love to do it, and congratulations. I mean, just really, really proud of everything you've done to get where you're at. And you say Miklas, is that correct? Is that how you say it?
I think
Miklas. So congratulations.
Hey, as long as we're on the subject of possible career switching or career switchers, we got this in number 8 from Andy. And he says, "Dear Jeff and APG crew, my name's Andy, a relatively new listener to the show. Thank you so much for the awesome podcast. It must be really hard having a group of friends that get together, drink beer, and talk aviation for a few hours each week. So I commend your brave efforts." Thank you. I think he really does appreciate all the hard work that goes into this. I'm a current PPL with about 83 hours. I was able to do my ground school through college and get credit for it. Seemed like a no-brainer. I originally wanted to be a professional pilot, but when I started looking at careers in high school, the job market wasn't doing well, so I went for engineering instead. Now I'm in sales because everyone said I should do it because I can talk someone's ear off about just about anything until they make me stop.
Makes him a great pilot now.
Yeah, you would be a good pilot. Yeah. Maybe I would be a good fit for the show. Wait a minute. Is that what they call a backhanded compliment? I think it
Possibly.
is. Yes. And it is good money. However, I definitely caught the bug at the end of my college career when I finished up my PPL. Haven't stopped thinking about a career as a pilot since. I just turned 25. Oh, he's so old. 25.
It's way over the hill.
Yeah. So I still have some good years left in me.
A lot.
And don't feel I'd be too far behind the seniority curve. Question about that in a minute. Now I just need to figure out financing for an accelerated program. If any of you have $45,000 burning a hole in your pockets, let me know, and I can help you, quote, invest it. Hang on, let me get my wallet.
Yeah, I have $20. That's it.
I have 20,000. Nick, do you have the rest that you can help out with?
Yeah, but it's 300% annual interest. Sorry.
44 cents.
Oh, yeah, Micah has 44 cents. That's not really going to help. Anyway, that being said, I have a few questions that I'd love to have anyone weigh in on, except Dana. If they're too long or whatever, no worries. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't put that there.
I read it before, so I know that's not in there.
You have a different version than I have.
Yeah. The Jeff edited version.
That's for my level.
Oh, okay. All that being said, I have a few questions that I'd love to have anyone weigh in on. Okay, what was that? Hang on. Let me turn off the notifications over here on my computer. Yeah, this is Slack, I think. Hey, Siri.
You're slacking off again.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me close it. There we go. Okay. I'm going to try this paragraph one more time. All that being said, I have a few questions that I'd love to have anyone weigh in on. If they're too long or whatever, no worries at all, and any advice is great. Number one, family is everything to me, and one of my main concerns with entering a pilot career is someone in my family falls ill, and I'm needed to be there. My parents aren't old or anything, but the circle of life will come around, and I want to be there for them when needed. How do the airlines work with pilots on family matters such as these? I'll go ahead and just do all the questions. Let's just take one question at a time. What do you think?
One at a time would be good. That's that. That way it keeps it fresh.
That first question is one that I think is highly dependent upon the company for which you're working. Now, Dana and I can tell you that, at least in my opinion, Acme does a pretty good job of making sure that they support you in your personal matters when you're flying with them. And if your wife's pregnant or something happens, some kind of injury or hardship in your family, they do really, at least in my experience, it's this anecdotal evidence, they really work hard with you to make sure that you're okay and that they support you in any way they can. For instance, when you lose, like when I lost my mother and then my sister just 3 months after that, back in 2015, they were just amazingly helpful to me with changing my schedule and making sure that everything was set up properly and I could deal with the whole thing. And they said, just take your time coming back, because there's more to a loss of life in your family than just getting the time off and being there for the funeral, but there's also emotional and mental baggage along with that as well. And they were very insistent that I don't come back until I was ready to fly again. I really feel strongly that the company for which I work does a pretty good job with that. I would imagine I've heard stories from other people working for other companies that basically is the opposite, that they you're on your own when it comes to family matters. But I think my timing was really good when it came to the birth of all three of my children, two of them, the last two, while I was an employee at Acme Airlines. And it just worked out. I had scheduled my vacations for around the time that the babies were due. And it just worked that I just happened to be home when all these things happened. So I was very fortunate as an airline pilot to be home for the birth of all three of my children. The first one was when I was in the Air Force. So that was a no-brainer. It wasn't on long trips or anything.
The Air Force isn't quite as considerate.
No,
no.
Probably not. But fortunately, I was working as a flight instructor and I wasn't away in some other part of the world. So yeah, it may have been a different story if I'd been on that kind of a mission. But that's my experience. What would you say, Dana?
Well, I'm in 100% agreement with you. Everything that I've experienced and seen, and I've, as you know, I worked behind the scenes quite a bit, has been nothing but positive. And I think a big part of that is that they don't want you operating an aircraft if you're not mentally really capable of doing it, because if you're forced to come in, then guess what, you're going to be completely and totally distracted, which adds to the possibility of an event. So that's, I think, a bigger portion of why the company is so supportive, because their number one philosophy at Acme is safety and a safety culture. So by doing anything else other than supporting you during a time of need, when you have family tragedy or something, major life event going on in your life, it would be quite contrary to that belief, I believe. So my experience is exactly the same. So I'm not going to belabor it any more than that.
Very good. Nick?
My outfit was absolutely brilliant. They put great store behind that kind of aspect. And I've had guys, put on aircraft, flown halfway around the world as fast as is conceivably possible to get to the loved ones who had problems. And I think part of it is due to the strong safety culture. If someone's away on a trip and they know something bad is going on at home and they really feel they need to be there, they're not in the right frame of mind to continue to operate, particularly if it's going to take a day or two to get back. They need to get back as soon as possible. And it's not really safe to have them on the flight deck doing a normal trip and expect them to be able to keep their mind on their work. So I think that was part of it. So the two combined made us a great airline. But you're right, Jeff. I don't think there are many airlines that can boast that level of concern. You'll find particularly when you start flying. A lot of the airlines you'll be working for, they just want one thing. They just want your backside in the seat doing your job, and they don't really care about much else. But it might be a factor for you when you come to pick the airline you're going to stick with for a good portion of your career. So choose carefully.
Yeah, that should be a major factor in your decision to, which one you try to go for. Of course, it may out of your hands at that point, but
and one of the biggest things is that nowadays with the internet, there's so much information out there about the culture of each individual company, and that you can weigh into any factor as to whether you want to go work for that company. And are they the only operator that's available? Are they the only one that's going to offer you a job? Those are things that you have to take into consideration. But I certainly wouldn't make a career choice based on that future decision. I would definitely go for it.
Just a little background note for those that are only listening. Before we move on to the next question, if there's any background noise, it's because you'll be hearing me taking the meatloaf out of the oven to put the bacon on it, and it's just got to be done. And I apologize for the background noise, but just want to let everyone know what's
You're
happening.
making me so hungry.
I thought we talked about the fact that we didn't want you playing with the meatloaf, your meatloaf, while we were recording.
I thought I just couldn't play with your meatloaf.
Well, that's
no public playing with a meatloaf, please.
You'll just have to. You should. I wish that you could smell what I'm smelling in this kitchen that we're in.
I can only imagine.
Well, I think
he's such a fantastic chef.
I think that lawmaker from
Nairobi
smelling
what she was
probably be complaining right now.
Oh man, that meatloaf looks awesome.
Oh my God!
Drop it.
Hey Jeff, any chance you can bring a slice home with you tomorrow, and I can meet you in the crew lounge?
No. Really, you really want to drive all the way down to the crew lounge?
Well, I'm going to be there anyways.
Are you?
Yeah.
When are you going to be there?
That's a good question. Let's see. What time do I?
Well, while he's looking that up, the other thing I wanted to add to the first question that Andy had, is that also a lot of, when you first start out, you're not going to have any seniority at all, and you're not going to be able to really do much with your schedule and control of your schedule. That's one of the things about seniority that is just amazingly good. But as you gain some seniority, you can pick certain airplanes that you fly, and to try to fly trips that maybe aren't gone as many days at a time, or even try to get into, if your airline offers seniority pilots, to be involved in the training department and become a simulator instructor. Which is it's a kind of a competitive thing, but if you are determined to do that, you can be home every night, basically, except the times where, the months where you're going on trips and such. But there are ways that you can kind of control your life in that respect, if you have other things going on. So that's just something I thought I'd throw out as well.
Seniority is king, isn't it?
Yes. Item number 2. With the pilot shortage and the increasing number of mandatory retirements coming up in the next 10 years or so, do you see some primarily senior bases becoming more junior as this happens? I live in Denver. Everyone and their cousins are moving here. I'm pretty sure it's one of the most senior bases for airlines hubbed here. But with mandatory retirements coming up, do you think there's a chance of me finding a way to be based here if and when I get to the majors? And if this question isn't just specifically Denver, I'm just using that as an example. So in my view, in general, the bases that are senior, regardless of what's happening with retirements and everything else, are the ones that probably are going to stay senior. Would you agree with that, Dana?
Yes and no. I've seen some changes in that, actually, especially now that we're hiring a lot of junior people. So, but generally speaking, yeah, the more senior bases tend to stay that way, whereas, a New York type base will always be a junior base. Newark included in that, depending on what airline you're talking about regarding Denver. That's always a gamble. You've got to decide at a certain point at what's your best seniority, where it's going to take you. Are you willing to commute? Are you willing to make that sacrifice in life and commute, or do you want to live in base? And if you're tied to one specific area, whether it be Chicago or Denver or San Francisco or Atlanta or wherever it may be, the major hub bases for most of the airlines in this country. You've got to make that decision personally, whether you want to be in those locations or whether you're willing to commute. And that would play, I think, in a very large way into which airline you try to get hired with. But I've seen it go both ways. I mean, Seattle used to be a very, very, very senior base. And I think in the last AE, I'm not sure if I think it could hold it, or was it Salt Lake as a captain? Both very, very senior bases. And Seattle, certainly for forever, I could not hold it as a first officer. Now I'm a very relatively senior first officer if I was willing to go back and go up to Seattle. So, that's always been historically very senior base. So the hub bases tend to be the more senior ones, though. And then, the cost of living bases that are a little bit lower cost going to be your much more preferred bases overall, I think.
Good point. I think, if where you live is an important thing for you, as Dana says, if you can't get based there because of seniority issues, there's always that possibility of commuting. But that also has, its negatives.
Major drawbacks.
Yeah. But, it just depends on, what your priorities are. If putting up with commuting lifestyle is, allows you to live where you want to live, and it's important enough for you to do that, then, you could do that. That's one of the beautiful things about this job, I think.
It's exactly, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that was exactly what I was going to say is, unlike most careers and most jobs, unless, you're in high demand executive or somebody in high demand in certain businesses, that, the company is willing to fly you back and forth wherever you happen to live and choose to live. I mean, my neighbor right across the street, she works out of the DC area, and every week they fly her up there. So she lives here in Atlanta where she prefers to live. And she fortunately works for a company that will positive space her back and forth, but that is a rare thing. In our business, we're very fortunate in that we can go ahead and have that ability to have the option of commuting and to be able to live in different areas. And, seniority has a lot to play in that. I mean, if you're a junior first officer on reserve and you get stuck at the bottom, kind of like I did after the 9/11 events. And then, of course, once they raised the age to 65, so it was 10 years of basically stalling. I was a junior first officer for 5 years on reserve. So do you want to commute to reserve for 5 years? And these are possibilities. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but I have to, I would be remiss not to mention that there are always the possibilities that right now, hey, listen, we're going gangbusters. I mean, people are getting hired over the last couple of years and now halfway up the seniority list in their airplane, right? So the seniority is booming, but there's nothing to say. I mean, look at what happened this past week with the, I'm not talking, world events, but, it can change the fabric of the industry really quick, and what happened in Saudi Arabia. So these are all unforeseen circumstances that can affect that going forward. So you have to, even though you want to have these answers, you have to kind of go into it with in an open mind and understand that, this is what you plan for. But being 25 years old, my God, you have an entire career ahead of you. So I wouldn't base my entire decisions based on what is today, other than the future looks really bright.
Yeah. Good point. Item 3, finally, everyone says a recession is looming, which I'm not an economist, so I have no clue if it's true or not. I feel like people have been predicting this for years. Let's say it happens anyway. Tough luck, but it will at some point. See, he's pretty smart. He understands that the financial situations, it's a cyclical thing, and it will happen again, and there will be bad times again in the airlines. Anyway, back to his question. I know airlines will sometimes reverse flow you to the regional if majors are slowing down, but just wanted your input on that. Now, I don't think that that's something that happens at Dana and my airline, where, if if the economy slowed down and we started working backwards, I don't think there's any opportunity for us to go back to any of the regional carriers that are part of the Acme system. So I'm not sure where that happens, but I guess if you're working for one of those companies, that's a good thing. But yeah, not here. If everything goes backwards and things start, as you say, reverse flow, that means you're going to be furloughed and out of work, and you're going to have to go with Plan B or Plan C.
To answer his question a little more directly, from my personal experience, Andy, I have to be honest with you. When the after September 11th occurred and the airline industry basically came to a complete and total halt, there were a lot of people that got either stopgapped or furloughed. And no, there's not a flow back that I'm aware of. I mean, I don't know what the current agreement is with some of the flow ups. There may be some flow back, and I know there was one at one point that was a flow back as well. I don't remember which airline it was. I'm not going to be specific on it, but I do know it existed. However, when I got hired at ASA, Acme Regional Carrier, most of my class actually was furloughed Acme pilots. So we had a lot of furlough pilots. So what they did is they took care of their own. Now there's another company based out of Cincinnati that no longer exists that said no, but the other word HELL, no, that they were not going to help out our pilots and offer them positions. So there is that possibility. However, our company was very smart in what they did, and they maintained market presence, even though it was smaller aircraft, which allowed us to grow to the point that we're at right now. So anything's possible.
Any input on that at all, Nick?
No, it's just that a recession in one part of the world is often not reflected in another. Of course, if it's a global recession, then forget all that. But if you're willing to up sticks and move, there are flying jobs usually to be had somewhere in the world. You may not have to do it for long. During 9/11, Dana mentions our outfit had to make a number of pilots redundant, but they found jobs for them in other airlines, which was great. And they were given the opportunity, depending on how they chose to leave, whether they wanted to keep their seniority number with my outfit, so that when they were recruiting again, they could slide back in and they would be the seniority they were when they left. That was one of the conditions, but obviously some people chose not to do that and take full redundancy, etc., etc. There are various packages on offer. So, but there are jobs generally somewhere in the world, even if it's out of Mongolia. You can usually get a flying job there, no problem.
Nick, isn't that incredibly generous to allow someone to go under a situation like that and then come back with remaining seniority? That sounds truly unreal and very
not really, Micah, because of course by doing so they got a much reduced redundancy package. So as far as the company were concerned, they were saving money. It didn't really make a lot of difference to the company where they slotted in seniority. When they came back, they were just another pilot. It made a difference to the other pilots, of course, because having left, they moved up in seniority. When these guys came back, they moved back down again. But no, I don't think it's, in fact, the company saved money doing that.
All right. Thanks for that input, Nick. And item 4, kind of on that same note. Wait a minute. He said the last one's finally. So should we allow him one more question?
No. Yes. They're only supposed to be one question per email. You know the rules, Jeff.
Yeah, well, Andy's a new listener. He doesn't know that you can't ask this many questions in one feedback. But we're letting it slide this time, Andy.
Can you guys still hear me even though I'm frozen?
We do hear you, but we don't see your video.
I don't understand that. Okay. I'll stay.
Okay. Kind of on that same note, do certain degrees give you more of an advantage at the airline level in terms of application? For example, engineering degree versus, say, an English degree versus an aviation specific degree. I'm not trying to discourage anyone's choices in schooling or anything. Personally, I hated engineering. me too. But it is a good degree to have, in my opinion. Yeah. So just wondering if that would potentially give me a slight competitive advantage, especially if hiring slows at the regionals. And we've covered this. I know, Andy, you probably haven't caught the APG syndrome, which means that you go back and listen to all the shows, all 391 of them.
And there's going to be a test.
Yes. But we have covered this many, many times. And our answer to that question is it doesn't really matter what kind of degree you have as far as getting hired by the company you're trying to get hired by. Having a degree could make a difference. And as far as I know, most of the majors here in the U.S. are still requiring it. But it's just a degree, not necessarily what field the degree is in. Now, this may differ for different airlines or different countries, and what they require or what is going to give you a competitive advantage. But we always say here at the APG, get your college degree, get it in something that will be your plan B, and hopefully it's something that you're interested in doing in case your dream of becoming an airline pilot doesn't pan out.
Underwater basket weaving. That's a good one.
I was going to say, should you get that degree in Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Wow. I'm not sure that even deserved a rim shot, but wait a minute. I think it deserves this.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Haven't you got that trombone?
Oh, yeah. Wait. Yeah. Where's the trombone? We got the horn. Like, this will have to do because I don't know where the trombone is. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay, good. So yeah, no, I wouldn't worry about if you get your degree in engineering or aviation. I have a degree in aviation management, but it's not such an important thing that it was aviation management. Acme didn't care really. They just, the degree filled the box, checked the box, and set me apart from somebody that did not have a degree. Now that could change. And again, as I say, it may be a different situation in other parts of the world and the way they hire people. In fact, I think it actually does make a difference maybe in some other areas. So that's the best we can do. But if you're planning on trying to get a job here in the U.S. and with a major airline, again, I don't really think it matters what your degree is in. And as Nick said, one of his favorite selections would be underwater basket weaving. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Very useful degree, that one.
Yes. I mean, Dana is a professional, well, not professional, but an underwater photographer. And so making the leap from underwater photography to underwater basket weaving is not a big one.
Well, the good thing is I have really good buoyancy, so that would be, a very easy thing for me to do.
There you go. Okay, so
I remember the old story of university in the gentlemen's toilets, just above where the toilet roll was. There was a sign that said, "Sociology degrees, please take one."
But bam, that does deserve a rim shot. Okay, there's a ton of information to go over here, and I realize that some of this could potentially warrant its own 3-hour episode. Yeah, thanks, Andy. You basically covered the entire segment that the time that we had allotted for everybody. Good night. Thanks for no. I'm just kidding. I listened to a couple of other podcasts that are more career advice oriented, and these questions haven't been answered from what I've listened to. So I'm hoping that the answers given will help a lot of people out there. Thank you so much for the great show and all the advice. I did a ton of training in Atlanta last year for work before I started listening, but would have loved to have met up. But if any of you are in the Denver area, please reach out. There's a brewery every 50 feet you walk, so I'm sure most of you would do well. Kind of like Starbucks every 50 feet, right? And Captain Dana, there's a whiskey distillery here called Stranahan's that does tours, and I've been looking for the perfect reason to go.
I'm on my way. Well, we don't go there anymore. We used to.
Oh, we don't go to Denver anymore, huh?
No, we do not. I haven't seen anything in Denver anymore. I have 2 El Paso layovers coming up next month.
That's because Bob Seeger said we better get out of Denver, better go.
There we go.
Good thing I have the soundboard right in front of me with a rim shot in a place where I know where it is.
Well, that's because you
Anyway.
use it plenty this evening.
Oh, I have. Anyway, best regards to all the crew, Andy. So, Andy, hope that helped. And without further ado, I think it's time now for us to head over to this week's installment, which is the best part of the show, the Old Pilot's Plain Tales.
Yay!
This week, well defined.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. Well defined. Our lives in aviation are defined by definitions so that we all know exactly what we're talking about, whether it be an instruction, an aircraft part, or perhaps a flying technique. None of us want to be misunderstood and put the speed brakes out instead of calling the galley for more coffee. So the last thing we want are words with more than one meaning, if you know what I mean. How on earth, then, do we have so many double entendres, innuendos, and that's my endo, if you don't mind, in aviation? Some people might call them punny, but at the risk of using homophonous language, and before you write in, a homophone, or homophone, or, oh, well, I don't know, is a word pronounced the same, but with a different meaning. I think we should sort it all out so there's no confusion with wordplay, and let's be sure we don't engage in any homophony or use oronyms, if you prefer, since it means the same, and go into the deep end or deep end. Talk about ice cream instead of ice cream, the sky instead of this guy, and have fork handles instead of four candles, or mention minute instead of my newt, who I might add is called Fred and often found as drunk as a lord. Sadly, there may be a little confusion across the pond, as not everything I say translates accurately into foreign languages, such as American, and I'm going to try and avoid some of the worst "that's what she said" moments by not mentioning obvious ones, such as that sly Irish airline, cunning lingus, and the old TWA joke of serving TWA coffee or TWA tea. Let us begin the journey across the sea of language with aircraft parts. And the game is to try and find the word before I get to it at the end of each definition. This one is easy. It means to beat, flutter, agitate, wave, wag, waggle, shake, swing, or twitch. It can be confused with panicking, getting flustered, but the last thing we want for you to do is get into a flap. Neither do we want you to smoke something that is often used for recreational purposes and may be illegal in many places, and you shouldn't use it on a racehorse to inhibit or enhance performance either, or you might be described as a fool, idiot, ass, half-wit, nincompoop, blockhead, buffoon, dunce, dolt, ignoramus, cretin, imbecile, dullard, moron, simpleton, or clod. In the flying world, we want you to spread it on the cloth covering of an old aircraft to tighten up the material, because it's dope, you dope. Now, this is a word for apparatus, paraphernalia, impedimenta, and it drives our cars along. You could wear it for a particular activity, and it's a way of transferring power from one shaft to another. It also has a strange connection to the previous word in that people with bad habits might ask dubious salesmen on street corners if they have any. But in the flying world, it's one of the many things you don't forget, or there will be a loud scraping noise as you meet the next word. The next word is where a model struts their stuff while showing off the latest creations, darling. But it can also be a canal, gully, duct, ditch, course, channel, aqueduct, or fluting, to name just a few. Ready for it? Why, it's a runway, darling. And the anti-penultimate one that has sadly bent many a piece of stage scenery or pile, post, pole, pier, buttress, stanchion, bolster, or truss, for you old gents, is a prop. And if you can remember back far enough, the item you forgot was the gear. The thing that pilots do just before they realize they have forgotten the gear is, of course, to create a sudden burst of light as they flash their pearly whites, and in the way of oronyms, they maneuver with talent, aptitude, capability, faculty, panache, verve, elan, finesse, poise, elegance, and sparkle as they flare their flying machines and touch down with all those words and more. Now, this is an easy one, as it's something that many pilots have to deal with on a daily basis, and it's usually left behind the rod, pole, stake, stick, batten, shaft, shank, rail, counter, or bar of your favorite hostelry for the barkeep. Of course, if you're cunning enough, like those Lingus pilots, you'll leave someone else to pick it up. It also refers to a sheet of instructions for the band's drummer or guitarist on how to belt out a melody, but rather worryingly, like an earlier alternative definition of dope and gear, it has questionable connections to the drug trade, particularly LSD. Any Mad Dog driver will, of course, be very familiar with it, as they get high on it all the time. Yes, really, it's a tab. And on the wonderful Mad Dog, it's moved by Captain Jeff or Captain Dana and all the others, I suppose, to create an aerodynamic force that in turn shifts the hoist, dumbwaiter, lift, granary, silo, or possibly elevators, and gets them higher than a hippie in a hot air balloon. Yes, like you, I'm getting a little concerned about these continual references to illegal substances, so let's move on. Our next alternative definition, at least in Britain, refers to rolling papers. You know, the stuff you wrap your joint in. Oops, there we go again. Seriously, I had no idea. More commonly, it's the bit of our body that keeps all the messy stuff on the inside, but to keep our colonial cousins in the loop, it also refers to giving a buddy an informal hand slap that occurs when two people simultaneously raise one hand each about head high and push, slide, or slap the flat of their palm against the flat palm of the other person. The gesture is often preceded verbally by a phrase like, "Give me some of the outer surface which covers much of my wings and fuselage and other bits of an aircraft. Skin." So how are we doing? You should have got the idea by now and scored around 9. Continuing on with the Mad Dog tab theme, of course, the thing that Captain Jeff hangs on to for dear life is actually a piece of equipage, tack, coupling, that's what she said, harness, garment, hitch, or in Ireland, can we please get away from the world of drugs, an ecstasy pill. Of course, it's also the middle of a chicken's egg. It's the yoke. Now, in the engine department, we have quite a few "that's what she said" problems, such as a word that can be a court shoe or vamp, like a Mary Jane with an ankle strap instead of an instep strap, but it mainly forces, drives, pushes, inflates, transports, or injects. It's a pump. But that's not the worst, as the force that opposes drag also causes embarrassment, as it's there in the pumping department with all other synonyms such as ram, prod, poke, push, propel, and shove, all of which point to one thing: thrust. Now, the next engine-related fun we can have is gag, smother, strangle, stifle, and in archaic times referred to as a throat, gullet, or windpipe. Hence its use today in the choking, asphyxiating, or garroting department. It's the word that Captain Al hates when referring to thrust levers not connected to a carburetor. The throttle. Another lever in the same area brings to mind a melange, assemblage, combination, conglomeration, mishmash, hodgepodge, pistache, farrago, blend, or brew. We like that last one. And is, of course, have you got it? The mixture. Finally, on the front is a thread maker, or a type of bowler, the cricket variety, who might deliver a Chinaman, googly, flipper, or leg break. It might also be used by a fisherman, particularly for trout. And in addition, it hangs on the boss. That's a bit of an aircraft, you know, not the one in charge. And it's called a spinner. How about a few more things to do with someone who, in an idiomatic phrase, improvises and does something without proper preparation? Well done. They wing it. We have had flaps, but what about the thing on the back of some boy racer cars, or a reveal that ruins the ending of your favorite TV drama? Well, that would be a spoiler. We have more. The slender curved bones that articulate in pairs to the spine, and spare ones that are the basis of many a fine meal, can also be furrows on a road, and describe being teased by Captain Nick. Balloon pilots, please note. But more importantly, form long raised pieces of supporting structure in a wing. Yep, they're ribs. In a similar vein to a rib, Dr. Steph has got to be loving this. What is a strong pole used as a mast or yard on a ship, or a mineral spring considered to have health-giving properties? In more modern parlance, it would be a health and fitness establishment, but we know it as the main longitudinal structure that travels the span of the wing and bestows upon it strength. The spar. Lastly, in this section, how about that wonderful harmonic noise that occurs when 3 or more notes are played together? It might also be string, thread, tape, line, rope, cable, wire, or a measure of cut wood, usually about 128 cubic feet. We, as in us aviator types, know it to be the line stretching from the leading edge to the trailing edge of a wing parallel to the center line, and call it the cord. Of course, if you fly something big, you might have a tall tower-like structure used for carrying electricity cables high above the ground on your wings. It was originally the gateway to an Egyptian temple and comes from the Greek word for entrance. But we hang engines on called pylons. Good job. Before you land, it's traditional to do some clasping, grasping, gripping, clenching, and clinging. Or you might be detained, imprisoned, kept in custody, confined, impounded, immured, interned, or constrained. Indeed, you might be given an area of land that's held by lease, stocks, property, and other financial assets in someone's possession. But knowing most air traffic controllers, the time you will be doing will be holding. After your release, it's time to take a new slant on things, a different perspective, point of view, outlook, proposal, submission, motion, appeal, or plea. But as an aviator, it would be best to make an approach. After having a conversation, a chat, an exchange, a tete-a-tete with someone in a citadel or structure high in proportion to its lateral dimensions, full of operators who rise above others in a tower, your dastardly flying machine might eventually end up on a slope, a bank, gradient, tilt, acclivity or declivity, a change of voltage linearly with time, a ramp. Now, don't ask me how our friends from over the ocean, which is also named after the third climatic stage of the post-glacial period in northern Europe between the boreal and subboreal stages, but was actually first used during the era of Herodotus in ancient Greek around 450 BC and derives its meaning from Sea of Atlas in Greek mythology. Sorry, I got diverted. Nah, that was a joke, not an answer. Anyway, how does it get called a ramp when it's flat? On this side of the aforementioned ocean, we tend to use the word for a protective garment, pinafore, or smock, an apron. I fear that this competition is fast coming to an end, so let me add a difficult one to sort the true av geeks from the amateurs. This one can cause fear among people without any reason. It's the bane of a golfer's life, an unidentified aircraft, or can be plucked from the nostrils of a snotty boy. A bogey. Finally, thank heavens they all say, a pit or enclosure for fighting birds, a compartment in a sailing warship used as quarters for junior officers and for treatment of the wounded, or the pit of a theatre. The cockpit. Right, I make that 28, and I would expect you to have got at least 50% of them, or you shouldn't be listening to the APG. Less than that, and we ask you please to switch to Plain Talking UK. More than 20, and you're obviously devotees of the airplane geeks. And if you got all 28, then you should be doing your own podcast and not wasting your time listening to me. Bye and thanks.
Love that. That is so funny. And I think I got about 50% actually.
Good man. That's what I anticipated. Yeah, I was short of a subject, and I thought I could probably knock something together quite quickly.
I love those kind of
something
wordplay
like that.
things. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And I think the best part of it was the music. Felt like I was at the circus.
Yeah, it was. You know, it's an United States Marine Corps band.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was.
There you go.
Well, you know, a lot of people say that those Marines are a bunch of clowns anyway, right?
very, very
Micah
true.
at airplanegeeks.com.
Yes, exactly right. I can actually tell you what it was called if you give me a couple of seconds. Let me see. Downloads. The Grimio Polka.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
I'm sure you did.
Great. Oh, we were dancing around the kitchen. You should have seen us.
Before we turn the camera back on.
I love it. Very good. Yes, and I think like a quick polka on top of a meatloaf.
Oh, and that meatloaf. How much bacon did you put on top of that?
Just about a pound.
A pound of bacon.
Oh my God.
This is going to be so good.
That'd be gorgeous.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you all about it.
It makes great cold sandwiches on rye bread, Nick. You're more than welcome.
I'm not going. It's going to be a little while before I hit Maine, I'm afraid, and I'd rather be out there in the summer than. I expect it's already starting to get colder.
This time of year is pretty nice.
Actually, I've got to tell you, this is the best time of year. September and October are the best times of year to visit Maine. The leaves start to turn. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Maybe next year. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. All right. I think, wow, we haven't really done much as far as feedback is concerned. And our producer is telling us now we only have 40 minutes left of the 3-hour mark. So we better get going. What do you think?
Sounds good. Let's crack on.
Okay. Ben Ippolito sends us this. I believe it used to be the recommendation to have TA only for parallel runways. We're talking about TCAS now. Sydney International Airport certainly had this in the PRM, precision radar monitor approaches, instructions for a long time, but a few years back it was removed. I think the reasoning is that modern TCAS or ACAS algorithms can handle the closer spacing, and having RA on and a go around for a spurious alert is better than the risks of switching errors on the part of the crew and actual traffic situations where it would assist. Caveat: I don't work an airport with parallel runways, but generally air traffic control is trained to resolve compromised separation situations laterally, not vertically. This avoids potentially issuing conflicting instructions to the RA, which we can't see. The general advice is to issue a hard turn 60 plus degrees to one or both aircraft, then traffic advice when able. Obviously, each situation is different and each reaction will be unique. So, yes, I think the latest versions of the TCAS software have improved significantly enough for us to keep the TA/RA mode active when doing even close parallel instrument approaches, PRM approaches. But you are right, Ben. It used to be in the old days when we were starting to do the PRM approaches that was one of the things that we would do. We would turn off the RA, the resolution advisory function of the TCAS system, just so we didn't get any spurious resolution advisories. But the engineers came up with a way or an algorithm to help with that particular situation so that you wouldn't have any spurious or unnecessary RAs.
Yeah, certainly in the last few years, I don't think there was an airport I flew into that required a deselection of RA. And in a PRM approach situation, if we got both a breakout and a resolution advisory, we would fly the turn whilst following the vertical guidance of the RA. So we kind of do a combination of the two. As I recall, that was the guidance.
Yeah. And I think that there are only a couple of places now that, at least at Acme Airlines, where our company procedures require us to turn off the RA function, and it only is under certain circumstances. And San Francisco International is one of those. And again, that's not a PRM parallel approach situation. Those are actually slightly converging approaches to those very closely spaced runways at San Francisco International. So that's why that's one of those special cases where we turn off the RA and go TA only. But I think it's only one of two that we do at Acme anyway, that I can recall. Good to see you're back, Dana.
Yeah, I had to go through a complete and total reboot for some unknown reason. Crazy.
Well, if it's been a while since you've rebooted your computer, that might be why. I don't know.
Nope, it was rebooted today.
Oh, well, I don't know. Don't know what's going on. Well, we're glad you're back. We see you on the video, and we hear you just fine on audio.
Awesome. Great to be back.
Let's see. Item 3, Nick Camacho. Last episode, he sent us a couple pieces of feedback, audio feedback, and we said, we'll play one. Because, we only allow one, Nick, per show. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. And he's sent us the second one. Well, he sent them both at the same time, but we're going to play the second one regarding an experience he had when they were over in Europe. And, well, I think it's going to be self-explanatory. So let's hear from Nick Camacho. Go ahead, Nick Camacho. Hang on.
Go, Nick.
That was not Nick's fault.
I'm glad to hear it. I hate being blamed for all this.
Hey, Captain Jeff and the rest of the APG crew. This is Nick from the Air Capital. I thought I'd send in a little feedback regarding a recent experience I had on my trip out to Europe this past summer. As many of you know, I was fortunate enough to be part of the crew of Betsy's Biscuit Bomber and did quite a bit of touring of the United States and Europe as we took our airplane around. But one really cool thing that wasn't really C-47 related happened that I thought I'd share with you guys and then ask a couple of questions kind of associated with it. While the airplane was based in Duxford, we got a pretty unique opportunity at nearby Cambridge Airport. As Captain Nick mentioned in his plane tale about Betsy's Biscuit Bomber, I was actually over in England with my dad and my brother. All of us are pilots. My dad started flying when he was enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1963 and 1964. He was based at Mildenhall Air Force Base, just outside of Cambridge, and was actually learning to fly in Tiger Moths. And to keep the story short, fast forward 50 years, and when he got on Facebook, he found out that the Cambridge Flyers Group, Cambridge Flying Group, the organization that he had actually started learning to fly in, still existed, and they still actually operated one of the Tiger Moths that he did his training in. He did his initial training in 2 different Tiger Moths, and one of them was still there. Unfortunately, his logbooks were destroyed in a hangar fire shortly after returning to the States, so we're not sure which airplane he actually soloed in, but one of the 2 that he was flying regularly, registration number Golf Alpha Hotel India Zulu, or IZ as he called it, still existed there at the Cambridge Flyers Club. So while we were out there at Duxford with the C-47, my dad and brother and I snuck away one morning to Cambridge, and actually all 3 of us got to go fly that airplane, and it was a pretty cool experience for sure. As far as airplanes go, it's a fun airplane to fly. Light on the controls. It has a skid instead of a tail wheel, and it doesn't have any brakes, so it's very limited on its operational envelope because of its ground. The ground handling in any sort of windy conditions or gusty conditions are kind of the driver for its operational envelope, which is a little unique, but really cool airplane. But that got me to thinking about some of the cool things that I've been able to do with my dad because we're both intimately involved in aviation. And I wanted to ask you guys if you had any fond memories of when you were children. I know, obviously Nick's dad was a pilot. I'm not sure if anybody else on the crew had a parent who was a pilot, either general aviation or commercially. But for Captain Nick, do you have any fond memories of being a small child and flying with your dad? Any sort of pleasure or GA flights, or did you always just fly with him in the course of his commercial job? And then for anyone else, did you do any flying with your parents when you were small? Or conversely, do you have any memories of the first time you got to take your parents flying after you got your license, or any significant passenger stories of once you got your license? thanks for the great show, and I look forward to hearing your guys' responses. Talk to you again soon.
Well, mine's easy. Nobody in my family flew. There were no pilots, and no, my dad never took me flying or anything like that. So, wah wah wah.
Well, I got to fly a few jump seat trips with the old man. I don't ever remember getting a cabin seat, but no, I went out to Africa a few times. Went out to South America when I was a youngster. Great fun. Loved flying in the VC-10. Always felt brilliant sitting there on the jump seat, watching everything. Just not a lot of entertainment because, like all long-haul flights, when you're in the cruise, there's not a lot going on. Yeah, but I mean, it was fabulous, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm sure that planted the seed that eventually blossomed and aimed my career in the direction it went.
Dana?
Well, fondly enough, the first time I ever took my mother flying, neither one of my parents flew. This is when I was working on my cross-country time. I was flying from a very small airport in southeastern Massachusetts, which is called Taunton Airport, Municipal Airport. And I was flying to Hartford Downtown Airport, which is right opposite the river of downtown Hartford. Very small airport as well. And we were flying over the top of Providence, and we had flight following going, and of course, doing VFR flight plan, learning how to communicate with with the air traffic control, still a student pilot. And my mother was sitting in the back seat and got notification from air traffic control that there was a mad dog that was approaching the area about 1,000 feet above us. And that was the first experience I ever had of wake turbulence. Rolled the airplane almost upside down. It was, they flew right over the top of us. And so needless to say, my mother was white knuckling the rest of the way.
She was very
scared.
impressed.
Yeah, she was very impressed that we almost rolled completely over because it was it was pretty intense. So yeah, that's one of my fondest memories of anything regarding my parents.
Not being a pilot, I have a rather different but very unique experience in terms of flying for the first time with a family member. And actually, just a couple of weeks ago, it was the 50th anniversary of this happening. The first time I ever flew, I was, everybody's going to know how old I am now. I was 13 years old, and I flew with my grandfather to New Orleans. And we flew, and he was 73. What was fascinating about it, it was the first time I ever flew. I was looking forward to it. I was so excited about it. It was the first time my grandfather ever flew. He was 73 years old. He'd never been on an airplane before. He was in the Navy for all his life, merchant marine, even was on a submarine a couple of times. He was terrified, and I didn't realize it until actually just a few years ago. I told the story for the Airplane Geeks. The reason I found out or remembered about it is because although he liked a nice bourbon every so often, and Dana and he would have gotten along really well, he never drank in the morning, but at 11 o'clock in the morning, he ordered a double on the airplane. Happened to be a Delta flight of all things, and had a double Jack Daniels. And it was just amazing to see that here I was for the first time, his first time, but from two different generations, a man born in 1897 and another guy that was only 13 and was just looking forward to it and couldn't be more excited.
He probably heard that I was the captain and said, double bourbon, please.
Quite possibly.
He had heard that, it would have been a quadruple.
Not funny.
Very funny, actually.
Yes, it is.
Hey, Nick Camacho always mentions when he sends us any kind of feedback that he's from the air capital. And of course, he's talking about Wichita. And in the latest, by the time you're listening to this show, it's not the latest episode of the Airplane Geeks, but the previous one, episode 569. They had a guest on named Sonia Greteman, and she's the president and creative director of Greteman Group, an aviation specialty marketing agency based in Wichita. And they talked about Wichita and why they came up and coined the term air capital of the world. Very fascinating if you're into aviation and specifically aviation history. You need to listen to this episode. But and then she has a book that she took part in helping to author, and it's called Wichita, Where Aviation Took Wing. But you talk about some name dropping. You're talking about Beach, Cessna. Was it Clyde Cessna? What was Beach? William Beach, something like that. Stearman, Bill Lear, Mr. Mooney. Just amazing the names that were significant in the history of aviation, and all of it happening in Wichita itself. So pretty cool. And I was going to say, hey, Nick, have you read this book? And if not, you should try to find it, because it looks like it would be pretty interesting reading.
Mr. Mooney, didn't he start a religion?
Yeah, I think that was a different Mooney.
Oh, okay.
Continuing on, thank you, Nick, for your audio feedback and your participation in our show. It's always appreciated. Michelle, who is a patron of the Airline Pilot Guy show, sent in some feedback. He says, hey, APG crew. Sorry. Hey, APG crew, wanted to share a goal I achieved recently flying. At the age of 48 in 2015, I started PPL training. One of my early goals at the time was to take my mom and dad up in the plane and overfly their beautiful seaside house and town of Bermagui. I don't know how you pronounce that. Nick, help me out. It's an Australian New South Wales, South Coast.
Bermagui, mate. Bermagui.
Okay. If you say so. I live in Sydney and train out of Camden. It took a while with work commitments, kids, holidays, and achieved my PPL late 2018. Unfortunately, my mother passed away with acute myeloid leukemia in 2017. So I still wanted to take Dad up. And almost a year after getting my PPL, weather, plane mechanical issues, we finally got there. I took my dad up. I flew from Camden to Wollongong and picked him up, and picked him up there as he was staying with friends. We flew through the Nowra military VFR lane.
Nowra, yeah, that's right.
And down to Bermagui. Say it again.
Bermagui.
About an hour's flight at 100 knots to overfly the town and his house. Lots of photos and video, and I think Dad was loving it. Then, of course, as things happen, a warning light comes on the dash as we are circling his house. FADEC. Fortunately, there are two in this Liberty XL2. So, what is it? Full Authority Digital Engine Control? Is that what the FADEC stands for? I think that's right. Anyway, so what to do? I'm at a low altitude of 2,000 feet and not an airport in sight. There were no other indications of any other issues, and the engine was running fine. I started climbing slowly and headed to the closest airport, Maruya. Nick.
Not helping.
Okay. Still no issues, and the light goes out. At this point, I called the CFI. At this point, I recall the CFI had mentioned issues with the FADEC before. In fact, the day before, the fuel injector had been blocked. We had taken the plane after and done stalls and cross-field landings. No indication of any sputter, so pretty sure it was not a blocked fuel injector. The light continued to illuminate on and off consistently for the whole return trip. No stress there. I think that's a little sarcasm. I nursed it home to Camden instead of Wollongong. Of course, that meant a 4-hour return drive to drop him off. Anyhow, all worked out okay, even if I was a little exhausted, and Dad was able to cross off one of the items on his bucket list. Thanks for listening. Love the show. Clear skies for all. Regards, Michelle. Wow, that must have been a stressful, hair-raising situation when you see those FADEC warnings, and you only have one. You have two FADECs, only one engine. But apparently,
I'm a bit surprised his dad had a FADEC failure on his bucket list. That's an odd one. But
I don't think that was part of his bucket list.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
Yeah,
I
but he doesn't really
misunderstood.
make clear,
Sorry.
does he, in this bucket list item was? But if it was on his bucket list, he nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely nailed it.
So
No, well done.
I had to go in and look at, what a Liberty XL2 was. Found a little place selling it in Greensboro, North Carolina, of all places. But this is a video back in 2018 or whatever, so I think it's long sold now. But apparently it has it's a single engine airplane with 2 FADECs and no, what do you call it? Magnetos. And I'm thinking, that's an interesting setup, I think, for a general aviation aircraft, single engine, low wing, general aviation aircraft. Wouldn't you say, David?
What kind of an engine has it got then?
It's got a Lycoming, I think.
Continental 240.
Okay. Oh, Dana knows all about it.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it because I had to look it up myself because I've never seen it before.
It's a pretty interesting looking airplane.
It is very interesting. I mean, there's 132 of them built, and range was 578 miles and 186 miles per hour is top speed. So probably 170 knots.
Mm-hmm.
Probably is a red line. So yeah,
I think
probably
the lady that was the video that I was looking at that was trying to sell it, a very attractive lady who was a very knowledgeable salesperson regarding all the capabilities of this airplane. I think she said the cruise, like the regular cruise, is like 140. That's pretty good.
That's what I was about to say. Actually, it's the number I was going to say. About 140 knots would be my guess for normal cruise, and looks like it's got a FADEC. Yep, it's full authority digital engine control. Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
You are right on the money.
Ding. Where's my bell?
Ding, 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 ding. We're above 50%.
Forgive me, guys.
Very nice
I'm not a piston prop man. So without a magneto, what creates the HT power to spark the plugs?
I don't know. Yeah, I know, but I mean, what is it? Must be some kind of a high energy ignition system in there. I don't know all the mechanical details.
I don't either.
Because FADEC is just basically the system that's the electronic computer controlled.
That's just a little computer.
Yeah.
So it's one where the spark comes from if it's not from a magneto.
I don't know. I don't know.
I shall live in ignorance. Don't worry, it won't hurt.
You know what? We have a wonderful APG community, and I'm sure somebody out there knows the answer to this. And
it's not in Wikipedia.
Continental IOF 240B 4-cylinder horizontally opposed 4-stroke aircraft with FADEC, but it doesn't say anything.
That doesn't answer the question, Micah.
It doesn't say anything else beyond it. Yeah.
About the ignition system.
Well, Hamish says digital electronic ignition. So what the hell's one of those?
I don't know.
I think I had one in my 73 Dodge Dart.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's probably the exact same one. It's the one in
I'm
the
just
dark.
having you get ones and noughts into electronic ignition, but there you go, because that's digital, isn't it? That's ones and noughts. Right.
I don't know.
I'm probably overthinking this.
I don't know where I'm gonna go when the volcano blow.
Everybody.
I don't know.
Well, it says on the FADEC, it says, I'm just here on Wikipedia. It says it's a system consisting of a digital computer called Electronic Engine Control, EEC, as we know, Engine Control Unit, ECU, and its related accessories that control all aspects of the aircraft engine performance. So it's basically saying that I guess the ECU or something electronic, it's got to be an electronic ignition system.
Well, that's what Hamish says. He says electronic ignition like in a car. So rather than having a mechanical distributor, it is done electronically through timing pulses, I suspect.
Yep.
Before we move on to the next piece, I just got a text a little bit ago from our good friend Mila. And Mila is in the middle of a very, very difficult line check, so she tells me. And you guys have been through...
What's she doing texting you in the middle of a line check?
A very difficult line check at that. It's only going to get more difficult.
That's exactly what I said. But nonetheless, I just think that it would be a nice idea if we could all send some good thoughts our way, because, a line check can be a tough thing. So anyway, just thought I'd bring that up for the crew.
Okay, here we go. Everybody ready to send her good karma, including all the people that are in the live chat room right now.
Okay. Sent.
I think her airplane just crashed.
Karma ran over my dogma.
That deserves a. You thought I was going to hit the rim shot, didn't you?
Now I miss Rick.
Okay. So, hey, this one I thought would be an appropriate one to play on our show. Item 5. It's from a guy named Mike. Pardon?
Before you move on,
yes,
I found it.
Okay. What did you find?
Aerosense FedEx system controls the ignition and fuel injection systems. I don't know, 25 horsepower, 93 kilowatt at 2,800 RPM, dry weight of 255 pounds. So we've got our answer. We're correct.
I'm really sure. Okay.
I forget what the question was now.
Oops. See, it's not as easy as it looks, is it?
Cut his finger off, Jeff.
I'm glad you did that. All right. As I said, moving on to item number 5. This is from somebody named Micah.
Yes,
no, I'm sorry, Micah.
Micah.
Sounds like trouble to me.
Micah sent us some audio feedback. You didn't need to do that. You're right here. And there's a microphone right here.
Who knew?
Yeah, who knew? And no, he sent this to me, about a week ago or so?
Exactly.
Yeah. And Micah went up on a airplane ride. Well, you know what? Let's let Micah tell us all about this.
We're here in Sanford, Maine, at Southern Maine Aviation, talking with Michael Burns. He's a flight instructor and just took us off a flight. Now, Michael's just been here about 8-9 months now and came up from another Sanford. Michael, what brought you to Sanford, Maine, and where did you come from?
Well, all the way from Sanford, Florida. Came up here because, well, one day my fiance and I said we really wanted to live up in the Northeast, and I looked online and found this little airport here in Sanford, and it seemed like a great bunch of people. So we mailed back and forth and came up, and it was a great fit. So here I am.
What are the big differences, if there are any, between flying down in the Orlando area and up here in Southern Maine?
The seasons and the altitude. Down in Florida, it's very flat, and you have to worry about towers and whatnot as obstacles. But up here, you've got actual mountains. Here at Sanford, you go a few miles to the east, you're at the ocean. You go a few miles to the west, you're getting into the White Mountains. It's this beautiful scenic place up here, and really visually interesting to fly. And organically, you come up with a lot of talking points in your lessons because there's so many things to look out for. Cold temperature during the winters, or rising terrain and how that might affect your flight plan.
Now, as we just came back from a flight, and we just took a wonderful flight with my cousin who happens to be up from Lantana, and he was PIC for a while, handed off to you, but brought you along as a CFI because rather than getting checked out, you could do a scenic flight with us, which was great. And we flew up the coast, did the harbor visual into Portland, Maine, flew up to Freeport from there, flew around a little bit. We were having a nice conversation as we were there. And one of the things that you said was that in terms of your career in aviation, what you want to do is be a CFI. That's a bit unusual. Tell us a little bit about your aviation career and your choice in terms of wanting to be a long-term CFI.
Well, I guess I just really like it. Even through training, I kind of liked that mentorship role kind of thing among my peers. And, I really like the lifestyle. I have a lot of friends that do airline pilot work, and they're away from home oftentimes. I, like spending my time with my fiance, and, I like the way that they treat me as an employee here. I feel like a partner, not just an asset. It's the lifestyle that I want to pursue.
And what kind of students have you had? What ages, and how do they end up coming to you here at Southern Maine Aviation?
Oh my goodness. I have had students on every part of the spectrum. I think my oldest was 67. My youngest is just 12. Of course, the 12-year-old can't go and fly by themselves yet, but I'm very enthusiastic, very excited to get into aviation, and it's just a joy to fly with them. I'd say most of my people are around middle age, maybe 40-ish. come from all sorts of backgrounds. I think right now my roster is mostly filled with doctors, but people that own their own small businesses, people that just were out of flying for a long time, went on to live their life and are trying to get back into it. You never know who's going to walk through the door.
What equipment does Southern Maine Aviation offer?
Well, we run a fleet of Cessna aircraft for the most part. We have 3 nearly identical Cessna 172 SPs, which is really convenient for the students because no matter what airplane they pick of those 3, you get into it and it's the same thing. The same GPSs, everything on the panels is in the same place. Even down to the interior, it looks the same. We also have, in addition to that, a 172 that's got a G1000 panel in it for those that are maybe going into their instruments and wanted to do more advanced avionics in it. And what we flew in today, the 182RG for high performance and complex endorsements.
Now, tell us just a little bit more about if people wanted to fly from Southern Maine Aviation, and if they particularly wanted to fly with you, because I got to say you were great, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, thank you. You can get in touch with me anytime at my email, m.burns@flyingsma.com, or phone number 407-704-9034. Call or text anytime.
Michael, thanks so much for talking with us here on the Airline Pilot Guy, and thank you so much for a great flight.
Well, thanks for coming along with me today.
And we'll put his number out there so everybody can call and text it right now, all at the same time.
I just thought it was really interesting to talk to a young pilot who decided that he wants to be a CFI. He doesn't want to move on to airlines, which is what a lot of pilots want to do. He doesn't want to do anything else. He loves teaching, and he wants to be a CFI for a career. And I haven't met anybody like that in years and years and years. And so I thought it would be interesting to talk to him for a little bit. Sure enough, I thought it was.
His bosses could be listening to the show. You know that, Micah, right?
I think that's perfectly fine. Southern Maine Aviation is a great place to work.
And I'm impressed with somebody who, we were talking about that in the car today, how, so many people, being a CFI is just a stepping stone, but for him sounds like it's the destination, and he wants to be a professional, as good a instructor as he can be. And we need more people like him.
Absolutely. He's a teacher, and he loves teaching, and he loves flying. He can combine both.
Yeah, it's a unique talent, and there's a lot of people in the industry that exactly that. They just pass through and just use the time to build the time. But I know a lot of people in the business also that are professional flight instructors. There's one here in Atlanta area that I actually worked with quite a bit, and he, believe it or not, works out in my gym now. So I get to see him on a regular basis, and that's over 20 years. So. He loves it and does a little side flying, but he's always been just a professional instructor, and it's really hats off to those guys and gals that do that, because it's a lot of work. It's hard work. It's a lot of preparation, and not the reward is not as good as an airline pilot, but believe me, if you're a professional instructor out there, you can actually do pretty good.
And Max Trescott does that too. And yet he's done other parts of his career, but this is what he's decided to do. And he's a full-time professional instructor. That flight itself, by the way, was absolutely wonderful. You saw some of the pictures. We took off from Sanford, flew up, did a low approach into Portland, flew the harbor visual, and you could see how beautiful that was. You could see Two Light State Park. Dana and I was there. We got a couple of pictures of ourselves down there when we were there last time, and then flew up to Lambert's Point in Freeport, circled around there, and came on back. It was absolutely gorgeous.
I'm impressed with that fort. I'm assuming it's a fort, some kind of battery that you flew near, Micah. What's that called?
That's Fort Gorgas, and it's right over the part of the harbor visual approach right into Portland. It was built in to protect Portland Harbor during the Civil War. It was never used, and they're just working right now on redeveloping it into probably some hotels and shopping, and it's a big destination. Right now, you can only get out there by kayak if you want to go out there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I realize it's cut off. So who raises and lowers the flag each day?
I'm not sure, but I know they have someone that does it.
Okay. I'm just curious, because it doesn't look like anyone lives there.
Yeah, it's pretty though.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, do you think we have time for a technical advisory?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Chris Ellerby via Facebook. He said, new listener here, and I have to say you guys have pretty much inspired me to try and get my pilot license. I'm about to go back to systems applications as well, and will be getting my drone license. I've been an avionics technician for the past 12 years now, first in the military, then in my civilian time. I was wondering for home simulators if you guys had any recommendations. Keep up the podcasts, and I look forward to the next one. Safe flying. And I know nothing about home simulators. I'm sure that Dana probably has much more knowledge regarding this, but I did some searching on Google and I found an article on sporties.com, and this was back in 2017, and they have a couple of choices here for like a good system, which is basically a company called CH Products Yoke and Rudders and using Microsoft Flight Simulator X or 10, and the better system is Satec yoke and rudder pedals with X-Plane, which is another PC-based simulation application. And then the best one they have is one I've heard of this company before, and I've heard it's kind of expensive, Redbird. And the product they have here is a Redbird J with RD1 rudder pedals. And so the first one I mentioned came in 2017 at about $275. The better system was about $400, and then the Redbird simulator was clocking in at $2,600. So obviously, the more money you spend, the better the system is. But again, that's all I can do to help out, Chris. I don't know anything about this. Dana, do you have any tips or advice for?
Yes, Chris. As far as simulators go, it really depends on what you want to use and what your goal is. Both Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane, both are excellent at doing what they do, and that is a home-based simulator. You can take it to the complete next level. Jeff was talking about some of the different plug and plays that you can plug into your computer and use a yoke. I know of people, and I'm sure some are in the community that listen, that have actually gone ahead and completely constructed an entire cockpit into using multiple screens and using real life flying controls and blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera. So you can take to any extreme you want, but any of the programs that Jeff mentioned, X-Plane, the Microsoft Flight Simulator, are going to be your best, most advanced. I think, if I remember correctly, it's been a couple of years since I've looked at them, but you can get just about any aircraft model out there for either one of those sims. So if you wanted to, let's say, fly the L-1011, for example, with the real world sounds and real world switches and everything that works, you can go ahead and download all the different packages and be able to actually fly the aircraft, or a Mad Dog or an A330. I mean, it's amazing what's out there. The best setups usually tend to be at least a 3-screen setup, where you have the ability to have more of a 3-dimensional world in front of you. But certainly any one of those programs are going to be your best bet. What you decide to do for periphery, whether you decide to fly it with your mouse, with your laptop or your keyboard, or actually buy a yoke and throttle controls, etc., and get rudder pedals and all that. My best advice to you would be to look at the online reviews for each one of them, and to see what people are saying on the user friendliness of them and what they recommend. And there are a lot of forums out there as well that you can access that people talk about too.
I was going to ask about this. Robert Fairbairn in our chat room, who is a big part of our community, he knows quite a bit about these home simulators. And he said that there are some Redbird simulators that you can actually log time by using them, and that was the question I was going to have. If that's worth anything as far as working toward your hour requirement. And he said, there's some of the Redbirds you can, but he said that he'd be happy to for me to get him in touch with Chris regarding his recommendations and advice. He said, doing it on a show like this and, texting and chat rooms and that kind of thing is probably not going to work very well. So he can give them a lot more information. So I'm going to set these two guys up, and Robert will be able to give Chris, if you're listening, your advice for what Robert thinks would be the thing to do.
Yeah, it's right in his wheelhouse. I mean, he's an expert in that area, so that's probably the best route.
Okay.
And that Robert is a true gentleman, and you know how you can tell?
No, how?
Because he knows how to play the banjo, but he knows good enough not to.
Yeah. Last time I saw him, he had that banjo out, and he was playing something. And I'm thinking, I'm out of here.
Yeah, don't blame you. I've seen that movie.
Yeah, don't want to see the sequel. All right. Looks like we're already at the 3-hour point. We have a lot of more feedback to cover, but we just don't have time on today's show. We're going to move it over to the next show, and that includes people like Wilson Gill and Andy. No, we already did Andy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we talked about Andy.
Adam had some thoughts about Nick's Plaintail and Ramstein. Derek, Dixon, Robert, Gail, Ray, and others. So please continue to send in your great feedback to Airline Pilot Guy, actually feedback at airlinepilotguy.com, and head over to our website, airlinepilotguy.com, where you'll find information about the crew, the community, and so much more, including a dedicated Plain Tales page. And remember that that's a standalone thing, or you can subscribe to and be delivered to your podcast client software on your whatever device you listen to podcasts on. Well worth it. And so much more. So again, airlinepilotguy.com. And we are also on social media. And Captain Nick, do you want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, on the tweets, you can find us with the handle at APG Crew. And on Facebook, just look for Airline Pilot Guy.
All right. And we are also on a quasi social media site called Slack. And did Hillel make it? I think
He's upstairs in the bathroom.
Okay. Yeah. Hillel! Well, you're on, man.
I need a towel. I got shampoo in my eyes.
What? Shampoo? What's he doing up there?
They're right next to the tub.
Okay. Well, that's kind of weird, I think.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo at airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
I wouldn't go in there for a while, Captain.
Okay. Thanks. And with that, thanks everyone for downloading the show, for participating in our live show and chat room. And until next time, and thank you to our dear producer, Liz in Toronto, making us look as good as possible for what she has to deal with. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great day. See ya.
Talons, Douglas.
Ba-doom, boom.
Brilliant.
Yay.
That's a wrap.
We made it.
Well, it was good of Robert just to pipe in with that sim stuff.
Sure was.
It's been a long time since I used FSX.
I have never used it, so I have no knowledge whatsoever on all this stuff. Okay.
Very useful.
Well, I mean, Hamish, having him around, he's certainly an expert on that. But the one thing I failed to mention is the fact that those flight simulator trainers are fantastic instrument training. They're really good at procedurals, teaching guys to do things properly. But
probably not so much the actual hand manual flying of an airplane, right?
No, but it's when I say procedural, I mean
I understand what
how
you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. That procedures, because you're going through the instrument procedures and you're pushing the right buttons and engaging the proper navigation systems to fly the approach, and you have to know the approach and what you're allowed to do at what point. Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us again on the live chat room. Next week, we're not sure what's going on, but we'll let you know as soon as we know. And we hope that you all have a great rest of your week and a great weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a lovely time, everybody. And looking forward to seeing everyone in Frankfurt in a few days.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll see you there, Nick.
Yep, that would be brilliant.
All right. Until then, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming so long, and thanks for all the fish.